No, stay. Not big time like that. Small time.
All right, guys. I got to deal with some fire marshal rules, and I can't have you argue with me, or I might have to call the police. If everybody can kind of we're going to accommodate everybody. If there's any open seats, please sit down. There's some up front. Get along the walls. Just don't block the exits, as we know that we need to be careful of, because I know this is a very important meeting, and we need everybody in here. So, and I don't mind if you go towards the left and come up a little bit, that's fine. And let's see. We just got to keep those entrances open.
4 seats, right?
Yeah, and there's 4 seats up front if somebody wants to sit down. But we'll go ahead. We'll go ahead and get this meeting going. Today is Monday, August 15th, and I would like to give the honor. I usually do this with a veteran, but I would like to give this to Chief Strobridge. Chief Strobridge, if you would start the pledge for us.
He is a veteran.
Well, yeah, but he's something more. He's something more than a veteran to me today. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Chief. All right, and we're going to go ahead now and I invite you to join me with a moment of silence and prayer, and if we can ask God to bless all the citizens of Flagler County, especially all our men and women in the military and around the world, standing the watch to maintain our freedom. Here at home, our brave first responders, including police, firemen, and emergency medical personnel that keep us safe and away from danger and secure in our homes. I'd also like everyone to remember the people in the Ukraine as that conflict is still going on. And then just to add something to it, the addiction and the suffering that we're seeing throughout the country of opioid and drug and mental health addiction, if we can keep that in our prayers as well. So if we can have a moment of silence and prayer. All right, thank you. Now we'll move to item 2, and it's additions, deletions, and modifications. Item 7J was reposted on Friday as the following 2 changes were made to the contract. Number 1, a 2022 law has taken in effect that requires the chief judge of the circuits to approve the agreement, Florida Statutes 948.15. Our legal department added a signature line for Judge Clayton, and the change is on page 13 of the contract. Item 2, the circuit now has an administrative order that limits the cost of a misdemeanor probation supervision to $50 a month per probationer, and our contract is listed it at $55. Changes on page 24 of that contract. So now if we can go to item 3, and this is the announcements by the chair, and the couple of things I want to, I'll go through this. Board and council vacancies. Flagler County is soliciting registered voters residing in Flagler County for various citizen, volunteer boards, and council positions are up until filled. Current vacancies include Contractor Review Board, EMS Advisory Committee, Library Board of Trustees, Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. And for further information or to apply, please visit flaglercounty.gov and visit the advisory board vacancy pages. B is the upcoming commission meetings, workshops, and special meetings. Budget workshop Wednesday, August 24th at 1 p.m. Regular meeting Wednesday, September 7th at 9. Workshop Wednesday, September 7th at 3. And then a budget hearing Wednesday, September 7th at 5:01. And I think it would be, it would not be correct if I didn't, under my comments, mention thank you to the Flagler Sheriff's Department. Yesterday, so I'm sure some of you guys had heard, was calling voters and got a random call back from one of my numbers I called, and it was a guy attempting to push fentanyl in our county. And because of the Chief Strobridge immediately reacting and getting a detective to call me, 4 hours of back and forth texting, they were able to apprehend the guy and arrest him and take him off the streets. More than my life being in jeopardy or being saved, it's the lives of all the people here in the community that could have done damage to. So it's, you guys are truly heroes, and it was exciting to work with you for a few hours last night. It was a lot of fun. And ironically, I celebrate 11 years tomorrow for recovery from that stuff. So it can be beaten, and hopefully this 18-year-old child will get help. He will get focused, and we can get him some treatment and move forward. But thank you, Sheriff. Thank you for your staff's incredible. These guys are unbelievable. It's a big problem throughout our country right now, and it's coming massively. So we got to get ahead of it and stay ahead of it. But y'all do an amazing job. Recognitions, I don't have any there. Proclamations, we've got National Preparedness Month 2022, and this is requested by Jonathan Lord, our Emergency Management Director, and I've asked Commissioner Sullivan to read the proclamation.
All right, so Jonathan is coming forward with some others. Proclamation of the Flagler County Board of County Commissioners recognizing September 2022 as Preparedness Month in Flagler County. Whereas natural disasters and human-caused emergencies have the real possibility of affecting our community, and whereas government agencies and disaster organizations cannot bear the sole responsibility in preparing for and responding to these disasters, and whereas during Preparedness Month, which is September 2022, community members are encouraged to take time to educate and prepare themselves and those in their care for emergencies and disasters that can impact our community for extended periods of time. And whereas Flagler County community members who are prepared can be a positive influence on their neighbors by sharing their preparedness plans and encouraging friends, family, neighbors, and coworkers to be prepared too. And whereas the Board of County Commission firmly believes the people are prepared, the more people are prepared, the quicker our community will recover, resulting in a profound positive impact on the quality of life here in Flagler County. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Flagler County Board of County Commissioners that we hereby declare September 2022 as Preparedness Month in Flagler County, encouraging all residents, businesses, and visitors to be ready for disasters and emergencies by visiting flaglercounty.gov/emergency or calling the Emergency Operations Center at 386-313-4200. Those numbers will be available to you. To sign up for Alert Flagler emergency notifications and to find, request emergency information on our community training opportunities, including our Community Emergency Response Team course as well as details about, one, getting a disaster kit, making a disaster plan, being informed of the risks to our community, and getting involved in community preparedness. Adopted this 15th day of August 2022, attested Tom Bexley, Clerk of Circuit Court and Controller, and signed by Joseph Mullins, Chair of the Flagler County Board of County Commissioners. So with that, I'll hand that to you.
Getting around better.
So,
All right, Jonathan, would you like to?
Yes, Jonathan Lord, your Emergency Management Director. As you all are obviously aware, September is National Preparedness Month, but is also coincidentally the peak of hurricane season. Flagler County has been very lucky over the last several decades, having not seen a direct impacting major hurricane since 1964's Dora. However, in our recent memory, we are aware of the impacts from Matthew and Irma, which actually did not even bring hurricane force winds to our community, and we all saw what those storms did to our community. We're also very lucky that since the 1990s, the late 1990s, we've not had a major wildfire that triggered significant evacuations in our community, but I believe that our professional fire departments and our firefight helicopter definitely have a lot to do with that. We have been impacted by other severe weather, to include tornadoes, flooding, and hail, but those impacts are much more localized. Nonetheless, if it's your home or business impacted, obviously that can be very devastating. We also have major transportation routes and an active rail line that always carry the risk of hazardous material accidents. However, I don't share that to make our community sound scary. I believe our community, I truly do believe our community is paradise. I say all of this just to help our community, our residents, our businesses, or all of our various governments, just to be aware and be prepared so that when a disaster or significant emergency strikes, our community knows what to expect and can band together to return our community back to normal, like we always do. We are no more or less at risk of a significant emergency or disaster than any other coastal community in Florida, contrary to what some people's popular belief is, like to say we don't get hurricanes here. That's obviously been proven wrong. However, this September, together with National Preparedness Month, we intend on doubling down on our regular public messaging. We will share even more information about the risks that our community needs to be aware of, as well as more information on how residents and businesses can be prepared so that they can safely enjoy our amazing, amazing community. Thank you, gentlemen, for the proclamation. It really means the world to us. And I'd also like to take this opportunity to recognize your amazing emergency management team. We have Ryan, Neelan, Tiffany, and BP, as well as one of our almost 20 active volunteers, Jim, who's joined us as well. And we're very proud of that. Our volunteer group continues to grow. And when I say active, they commit to a minimum number of hours of every month and help us force multiply within our emergency operations center. So it's really great that we have those kinds of volunteers in our community. So thank you again.
Thank you, Jonathan. Commissioners, do y'all want to? Thank you.
I guess
Commissioners, y'all have any comments you'd like to make?
we're glad you're there, and we hope you are not activated too many times.
Fingers crossed.
Commissioner Hanson?
Thanks to the team. Good job.
Yeah, thank you, guys, and I agree with Commissioner Sullivan. We hope y'all have a very, very boring year.
We appreciate that immensely. Thank you.
Get a picture with it?
Do a picture?
Yeah.
Sure. Looking forward. Carlos has got a camera.
All right. Thanks,
All
guys.
right.
Good luck. Thank you, buddy. Hope we don't need you.
All right, now we'll move to item
Forget what he did, but it's been a
4C, and that is our sheriff's budget presentation, and we'll have our sheriff come up, Sheriff Rick Staley.
All right, good evening, Commissioners, Mr. Chairman. And I would like to thank my employees and the community, because there's a lot of community here tonight, because this is an important discussion. And normally we can work these things out. I've been able to for over 4 years as your sheriff during the workshops. For whatever reason, we haven't been able to do that this year, and I'm sure I'll talk more about that in a minute. Since I have been your sheriff, it has been my goal for these priorities: preserve the peace and quality of life, to prevent crime and arrest offenders, to work together to make our county one of the safest communities in the nation, enhance our technology, create problem-solving community partnerships at the neighborhood level through guardianship policing, to deliver law enforcement programs that are designed to meet specific needs in the community. And I think tonight you'll see that the men and women of the Sheriff's Office have delivered these priorities to the community and continue to deliver day in and day out. If you look back, let's look at 2021, but let's start at 2017 when I became sheriff to where we are at the end of 2021. Crime is down 54%. Now, our vehicle crashes are up, and everybody, I was at one today where a bicyclist was struck, and you have probably all seen him riding his bicycle. He's a great a resident of our community. He's an African American that you see riding his bicycle, his tricycle, and he travels on that bike to do odd jobs so he can live in this community. He's just a phenomenal man, and when I reached down there to talk to him, he looked up and he said, "Is that Rick?" And I'm pleased to say that I don't think his injuries were that serious, although they looked fairly bad at the scene, and fire rescue did a phenomenal job tending to him and getting him to the hospital. But we know that traffic is increasing in our community due to the growth, and I understand why people want to move to Florida. We're a free state, and they're coming here in droves and finding Flagler County. But one thing that's not listed in this crime, and I hear this all the time: why do I need more deputies? Why do we need this? Why do we need that? Because crime is down 54%. Well, those are part one and part two crimes. But what's not counted in those numbers is our calls for service, which are up. It doesn't count quality of life calls that we respond to, such as overdoses, natural death investigations, medical calls where we support other agencies, car crashes, and the list goes on and on and on. Because we are, the Sheriff's Office, your 24/7 provider on who people call to respond when they are in need, not necessarily just because of crime. So when people say we don't need more deputies because crime is down, it's inaccurate. They don't have an understanding of the full scope of services performed by the men and women of the Sheriff's Office. And here's an example. So in last year, 911 calls were up 10,000 additional calls. Our non-emergency line dropped by 2,000, but that still means 8,000 additional 911 calls overall that we had to handle. Our projected calls for service for the end of 2022 is just under 118,000 calls. Most of them, fortunately, are not crime. In fact, if I go back, you'll find that only 997 of those were crime calls. These are the calls for service based by the zone that our deputies are assigned to. District 1, which is the island basically. District 2 is the city of Palm Coast. And District 3 is western Flagler County. I won't go through all of that, but you have it in front of you. Our court and detention services, again, not counted necessarily in crime statistics, but I just want you to look at how our detention team is increasing their workload. 2,777 arrests. Now, those could be for Part 1 crimes, which are more serious, Part 2 crimes. They can even be Marchman Act, which is not a crime in Florida. But if Stuart Marchman is full, they have to be processed at the county jail and held under the Marchman Act under Florida law. So you can see that we are rapidly driving towards pre-pandemic number of bookings. If you're curious about male or female, the blue obviously is male and the pink is female. You can see that what that trend is also. This shows you the average inmate daily population at night. That's when it's counted. We're now averaging over 260 inmates per night in the jail. Fortunately, you authorized, in addition to the jail back in, well, I think it opened in 2015 before I was sheriff, to make the capacity 404. Had you not done that, we would be way over capacity in that facility and subject to all kinds of problems with the state. Other things that are not counted in crime statistics is the number of warrants received that we have to serve, some of those for failure to appear on their initial charge when they are released on recognizance or jump bail, in civil process service that we are required to do. Anything that comes out of the court, we are required to process as the sheriff. And so none of those are counted, especially in the civil process arena. As you know, Flagler County population trends are climbing. The University of Florida and the City of Palm Coast annual report indicates that in 2025, the population of Flagler County will be 128,000. By 2030, just 5 years later, 140,000. Well, my prediction is that we're actually going to meet the 2025 population predictions before 2025. The 2022 population is currently at 124,069 people. Between 2010 and 2022, the population growth rate was 29.15% for Flagler County. Since 2020, the population growth is 14.4%. These aren't my numbers. None of these are my numbers. The numbers that I just read to you are from worldpopulationreview.com and bestplaces.net. If you look at the cost of law enforcement service by jurisdiction, you will see what city police departments pay for law enforcement in the blue, and in the orange is what counties fund their sheriff's office at. I won't go through every one of these. I think the chart is pretty self-explanatory. If you look at the ratio of officers or deputies per 1,000 residents, you will see that only the Indian River County Sheriff's Office has less deputy sheriffs per 1,000 residents than we have. We're at 1.68, they're at 1.53. Volusia has 1.8, and the list goes on. Bunnell Police Department, for example, is 3.43, and Flagler Beach is 3.15. The next slide to your right on that screen shows the total sworn law enforcement officers. Flagler County, 186, Indian River, 170, and then you can look at the rest. And you can say, well, some of those counties are bigger. That's true. Indian River's not. This was our budget for this fiscal year. Law enforcement is $22 million. Detention is $8 million. The City of Palm Coast adds almost $6 million to the law enforcement budget for an enhanced level of service for their citizens. I appreciate Mayor Alphen being here tonight. Thank you, Mayor. Flagler Schools adds $940,000 in the partnership that you have with Flagler District Schools, the County Commission, and the City of Palm Coast, so that every Flagler County school has a school resource deputy in it, and 2 at the high schools. And the other sources are basically grants. So tonight's about salaries. So at the beginning of fiscal year that we're in right now, 21-22, the starting pay for a Flagler County deputy sheriff was $39,570.21, not including overtime. And I want to emphasize this because there has been a lot of misinformation that apparently has come to you, because when I met with you one-on-one, you were told, at least that's many of you told me, that my numbers include overtime. They do not include overtime. We painstakingly made sure that it was apples to apples. Daytona Beach PD is going to $51,008. Florida Highway Patrol on July 1st went to $50,000. St. Johns County Sheriff's Office is at $50,000, going higher. Volusia County Sheriff's Office, $48,000. Putnam County Sheriff's Office, as of July 1st, they're at $46,000 because they are a financially restricted county. I think the state actually calls it something else, but so they just got $1.2 million from the state, reoccurring money every year, so they could raise their pay to $46,000. You know, bless them that they got that. I wish we were in that category. Well, we could get some of that state money, but we don't. The Flagler Beach Police Department is currently at $38,656. They're requesting to go to $48,000. There's been no budget decision made yet for that. The Bunnell Police Department is at $40,476, and they're in budget negotiations right now, so I don't know how they're going to end up. So because we were so low, I had to be creative, because unlike you, I don't have a reserve fund. And that was something else I heard, that you guys were told that I had $700,000 in a reserve fund. Well, I don't. In fact, I have a zero reserve fund. I have to come to you if I need money above my budget. So what I had to do was cut off the first 5 steps of our pay plan so that I could get my starting pay to $46,541. Still low, but at least it's a little closer to being competitive to the agencies around us. We couldn't wait any longer to raise the starting salaries. And quite frankly, it wasn't a fair way to do it to our existing employees. Because instead of adjusting their step one for one, so if they were here 10 years, they would go to the new 10-year step plan. I couldn't afford that in my budget because remember, I don't have a reserve, so I have to work within my budget. So for every 3 years of service with Flagler County Sheriff's Office, they got 1 step. Not fair, but I had to move it, and somehow I had to move it without saying, oh, all you guys who were hired before I chopped off 5 steps, too bad. That's even less fair. I also had to implement lateral entry, pay for experience, which you just did with your fire department. But mine is for every 4 years of qualified full-time law enforcement experience, that instead of starting at step 1, the very beginning, you would start at step 2 and so forth for a maximum of 20 years of qualified service. Has to be qualified service. It's not reserve. It's not military. It is qualified, certified law enforcement service. Daytona Beach Police Department, here's their pay plan. They're proposing to start at $50,537.38 October 1. St. Johns County Sheriff, $52,500 for deputy sheriffs is what they're going to. And remember, these do not include overtime. This does not include the overtime triggered by 12-hour shifts. This is their base starting pay. On 10/1, I'm sorry, I lost my place here. Oh, and they also are providing raises for their professional support staff. The Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, currently at $48,384 to start. They're going to $52,500 starting October 1. And better than that, they have a 20-year retirement, 20 and out. My guys have to go to 30 years. And that's set by state law. Florida Highway Patrol, State Department of Corrections, FWC, FDLE, new starting pay that went into effect July 1st, $50,000. Now, let me tell you, those state agencies deserve it because they have been woefully underfunded ever since I've been in law enforcement. But now I'm losing people to FHP because of that. I already mentioned the Putnam County Sheriff's Office. And here's one of the craziest things. Buc-ee's in Daytona Beach, they start at $19 to $22 an hour. Home Depot just sent an advertisement out. It happened to come to my phone. Starting wage up to $28 an hour. And they're not risking their life, neither one of them. On June 20th, you guys did a consent agenda, and you adjusted your firefighter paramedic pay. You took $700,000 from the reserve account that I can determine anyways, and rightfully so. Firefighters in Flagler County deserve it. And maybe that's where Mr. Brower got his $700,000 that was being told to you guys by error. But that was done from reserves, retroactive to October 1st, 2021, in their new contract. I don't have a reserve fund. I have to come to you, which is why we're here now. So I'm asking you to treat our deputy sheriffs as well as you treat your firefighters and provide me the budget that I can do pay raises. Because yes, I've already heard this tonight. You don't tell me how to spend my money. I get that. Florida law says you can't, okay? But you fund it. And then it's up to me to implement what I'm telling you I'm gonna do each budget year, which I have always done, okay? I don't have a pot of money. The only way I could get money that we're apart is park patrol cars, save on gas. 90% of my budget, maybe 88% is salaries and benefits. So you do, 10% of 38 million is, I have $3.8 million to play with. But that doesn't, I just shut down training, which will cause us problems because agencies around the country have done that when the economy gets tight, and look at the problems they have. So I won't do that. So let me tell you a little bit more about my budget that I requested. There was a $175,000 increase for fuel in the ever-rising fuel prices. The budget proposal short in that request already. We based our per gallon at $3.13. I'm now paying $3.38 from the county fleet for fuel. And up until a few weeks ago, it was as high as $4.30 when my budget proposal for this coming fiscal year is based on $3.13. Now, none of us can control this, but you don't want me coming back to you and say, I need more money in my fuel account. We have to manage that, which is what we do. $350,000 increases in contractual agreements for detention facility. More inmates equals more meals. Inmate medical care, okay? Just the cost of having a jail. $630,000 in the budget request is employee benefit rates. Florida retirement system, which none of us control the rates, is $430,000 out of that. It's a significant increased cost is beyond our control. $600,000 in my budget is a request for 5 additional deputies, which, by the way, I've requested 5 additional deputies from the city of Palm Coast to close the gap on staffing. These 5 new deputies would actually move the agency forward from deficit that was identified that we should have had for many, many years to growth impact deputies under the 2019 study, of which you all have been provided copies of this study. Health insurance. So when we put our budget together, the county staff advised to add $300 per employee, which equaled $105,000, so we put that in the budget. Then after the presentation from the Bailey Group, it turns out the increase was actually $1,365, and that's only because you only increased it 50% of the recommendation by the Bailey Group, or a $477,750 increase. That left us with a deficit from my budget, which you require to be presented to you by the end of April, $372,750. And we were told, just like all the constitutionals were told, this deficit would have to come from the formula allocation. In other words, out of the money that your formula, which I'll talk about in a minute, allocates to the sheriff's office. So just that item alone, $372,000 short in a budget. And the fuel's probably, depending on what gas does, anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000 short, unless it goes crazy again, more. So because of that, we started looking for options for our health care benefits for our employees. And so we'll pull in out of the county self-insurance fund. We found better rates and a better plan. And so October 1, we're leaving the county self-insurance. And let me tell you, I don't take those decisions lightly. I owned a security company. I know exactly the impact that health insurance changes causes. But I had to do the same thing when I was undersheriff in Orange County. Because generally, law enforcement gets better rates for health insurance because the men and women that work for the sheriff's office tend to be younger and healthier, and that's just a fact of life, and the insurance rates reflect it. So my overall budget is to adjust employee salaries to stay competitive with neighboring agencies and retain our well-trained employees. If we lose a highly trained employee, a deputy sheriff specifically I'll talk about, it takes 8 months to a year to fully train. It depends. Do they have to go to the police academy? That's about 6 months. Then they leave the police academy, it's required by the state. They have to come to our internal academy, and then they have field training. So if we hire experience, we can shut that, close that gap a little bit, but it's eight months to a year that I'm paying a salary before they can go solo and answer these calls for service. In the last 18 months, 20 sworn and professional support employees left to join nearby agencies. Some of them joined the private sector for significant pay increases, and that was after we trained them. Till recently, quite frankly, it was rare that I would use an employee to another law enforcement agency. I might lose them if they want to change careers and go into private sector. That wasn't that often, but it did occur. But to lose to another agency, extremely rare. Not today. I've lost a bunch to St. Johns County Sheriff's Office. I've lost a number to the Florida Highway Patrol. I've lost a number to Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. Inflation is at a 40-year high, 9.1% when I put this slide together, which reduces the actual living wages of our employees, okay? Just like it does to all of us. My wife was just telling me, she does the grocery shopping, frankly, because I don't have time. And just last night, she was telling me how much higher everything is in the grocery store. And we're all feeling this, and I get it. Every resident in this county is, everyone in America is feeling this inflation. Last year, I agreed to the 1% COLA. I never thought it was transitory, but that was what was being discussed. That 1% COLA was gone before the end of October because of inflation. Flagler County is one of the fastest growing counties in Florida, and I'm asking for just 5 additional deputies, as the focus must be on wages. As I mentioned, we're currently still 3 deficit deputies short for the 2019 staffing study, but still 50 growth deputies behind to handle the planned and already approved community growth through 2025 according to the study. Remember, I don't approve any of these developments. I have to service them, okay? But I don't plan them. Oops, sorry. So I want to talk about the funding formula. You've heard me say this before in workshops. The funding model forced and implemented by the former county administrator was flawed from the very beginning. It was not based on the sheriff's total budget. $3 million of the sheriff's budget was supplanted by sales tax. So the formula right off the bat is based on $3 million less. The formula says the sheriff's budget share of new revenue based on a flawed formula is 30%. In comparison, in Putnam County, it's 58%. It did not consider this agency was understaffed and underfunded for decades at formula inception. The agency actually lost staffing between 2008 and 2011 when it was already understaffed. So these formulas are flawed. Last year, you told me to try to work it out with your staff. My chief of staff tried to do that, and the answer we got was no. That's the answer. So we can't work it out. The bottom line, it's a stalemate on the formula. I hope you get rid of the formula. Health insurance, I already mentioned that, so I won't belabor it. But your rates, if you follow the Bailey Group, are set to again increase in 23, 24. And as I mentioned, that forced us to look at alternatives. So we're leaving effective October 1st. But I also want to mention, you know, we're constantly trying to look outside the box and see how we can save money and do things more efficiently and more effective. So to reduce inmate medical costs to the county, not in my budget, this is in your budget. We partnered with the Florida Sheriff Association and Prime Correction and the Board of County Commissioners, and they are now negotiating medical billing for inmate hospital care. We have a duty to take care of the inmates. There's case law that says we have to provide them medical care. Whether you like it or not, we have to do it. They've already reduced costs of the Board of County Commissioners by 31% since implementation. And this is money that's saved in your budget, not mine. I never see this. It's not part of my budget. It's just the way to save the taxpayer money. So right now, we're about $1.3 million apart if the millage rate remains the same as it is today. If you lower the millage rate and apply any reduction to my budget request, like you did this current year, we will be further apart. Now, I've met with each one of you and I've given you options on how we could close this gap. Before we got here tonight was my hope, okay? But we weren't able to do that. So to work with the Board of County Commissioners to avoid an appeal to the governor and cabinet, I propose the following. Defer my request for 5 additional deputies to fiscal year 23-24. That reduces my budget request by $600,000. Change my COLA request to match the county employees so that you're not in this box that you can't give the sheriff 7.5% when you give everybody else 6.5%. But take that money and provide a $2,000 salary adjustment for all sworn deputy sheriffs, which would make my new starting pay $49,705. Not the highest, still below your firefighters. This is before overtime. This is a base starting salary. We also need to do the same adjustment for our 911 dispatchers. It takes over a year to train a 911 dispatcher, which handles the dispatch for the fire departments and all the police departments in Flagler County. They have to be tested and certified by the state. There are agencies in Volusia County right now is looking for 50 dispatchers, 50. St. Johns County has been trying to steal my dispatchers. Fortunately, I have dedicated employees that like working for the sheriff's office and serving this community. But at some point, economics changes that. I'm asking you to increase the BOCC appropriation by an additional $700,000. And I'll tell you where the money is. The BOCC received an additional $1.54 million, unexpected increase when the property valuation was finalized. Where did it go? That was your share of the increase.
Hey, Sheriff,
Yes.
the 700,000 you're talking about from that convoluted formula that we use?
Yes.
That you and I agree needs to be-
Increase it, so the formula says X,
Yeah,
I need an additional 700,000 on top of that formula.
got it, okay.
There was $428,000 increase planned for my health on site in your fiscal year 2022-23 budget to increase services. My understanding that increase was canceled and is no longer needed since sheriff's employees will not be using them. This could help fund my request. Where did this money get reassigned to? And then 6, exempt the Flagler County Sheriff's Office budget request from any millage reduction you may do. Because if you expect me to absorb it, like you did this last year or the year that we're in right now, then all that does is increase the void of where we are. And I'll give you an example of how this works. If you reduce the millage amount, as I mentioned, exempt the sheriff's budget request from the reduction. Don't risk public safety for a few pennies. Based on a 1/10 mill reduction, so that's 10 cents, right? Equals a $220,000 reduction in the sheriff's office share of that 1/10 mill reduction. That's a savings of $1.83 per resident per year. Pennies for public safety. So here's what I'm asking you to do. If you do number 4, 5, and 6, that's on the previous slide, you could actually fund my entire request, including the additional 5 deputy sheriffs, and still have money left over. What I'm asking, and I'm willing to work with you, so I'm saying, okay, we'll defer the request for the 5 additional deputies. But we need, and that gives you even more money than I'm requesting here. Because here's the reality. If we cannot be competitive, because you won't fund it, okay, and you fund the budget, I can move it and move it around, we've already talked about that. You're de facto defunding the sheriff's office because we can't attract and retain employees in this competitive market to fill vacancies. This is in fact reducing public safety and will force me to appeal the budget to the governor and cabinet. Now I know you don't like hearing that. I don't like saying it, okay? But that's the reality. In closing, I want to say this. I want to recognize your prior support to the sheriff's office. You have made hard decisions to correct poor decisions made by your predecessors that have cost the taxpayers, and all of us sitting in here are taxpayers, millions of dollars. Not easy decisions, but you made them. It took leadership and it took making tough decisions, which you did, such as mold ops, and I won't go down that whole path because we know what we're talking about. Additional deputy sheriffs. That's how we're able to reduce crime and answer the calls for service. Decades of understaffing the sheriff's office. We're still working on this one, but we've made great progress. I would hate to see us slide backwards. Old and outdated equipment and technology. A 1997 patrol boat was just replaced. It couldn't even go into the Atlantic Ocean unless it's a calm day. Well, just like a hurricane, rescues never happen in the ocean on a calm, beautiful day unless you have really bad luck. Okay, we couldn't take it out there. We have a 1999 mobile command center, which thank you for funding as part of last year's budget, a replacement for that. Because what that vehicle really was a pleasure Winnebago that a former sheriff bought, gutted it, and tried to make it into a law enforcement mobile command center. That stuff doesn't work. So it's just like a fire truck. When we buy these things, we buy things to do the job. They cost more money up front, but they will last decades. Old technology and so forth. And because of your support and the increased staffing and all the things I've already talked about, we, meaning all of us, it took a team to do this, including the city of Palm Coast, reduced crime 54% since 2017. So today we must take care of our employees. They are delivering for this community. They are making it safer. I ask you, would you risk your life on a daily basis for $46,000 or even $49,000? Okay? These amazing and dedicated employees are doing just that because we never know. When they leave their house and kiss their kids or family, their wife, spouse, goodbye, are they in fact going to come home? My wife mentions that to me when I go out on my Friday night patrols. She would prefer that I didn't do that. And clearly as sheriff, you know, I probably have that option, but that's not the way I lead an agency. And I've been shot on duty. I know exactly what it feels like. I was lucky I survived it, only because of a protective vest. Is the only reason I'm here talking to you today. So we must deliver for them like you or your family's life depends on it, because quite frankly, it could. So with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions. And, you know, I don't want to really make it political, but I've seen a lot of flyers come to my house, and they all tout public safety. Now it's time to deliver for the men and women. Thank you. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Commissioners, any questions or any comments? Commissioner, let me start with Commissioner Dance.
No, sir, I don't have any questions. We've got a workshop coming up, and so all this just needs to be taken in and evaluated. So I appreciate the presentation.
Thank you, Commissioner. Can I just make a comment to that? I want to thank Flagler Live for letting me know that you have a workshop, because quite frankly, we were told there was not going to be a workshop in August, which is why I'm here tonight.
Thanks, Rick. You gave us some stuff to think about. And the workshop is on the schedule. But
Yeah, we don't have the time yet, but my chief of staff will get it, work with your staff. Thank you.
Commissioner O'Brien. Commissioner Sullivan.
Yeah, thanks, Rick, because it was an excellent presentation. A couple of quick questions. That was the budget that I was given from you.
Yes, it is.
And numbers that, since we're still working the budget, and we have the working group coming up later, the way it was presented, this is from your page, was that 21-22 adopted 28,472, 393. What your proposed budget was 34,215, 669. When you add together the other parts of the budget, percent change from the previous year, 2021, was $6,076,798, which was a 0.85% increase. Those are your numbers.
Well, no, sir, are they, is that from my budget?
Yep.
Okay.
So now that's changed. Obviously, we've been working on that with the staffs and all that. So the budget that you're proposing that we support tonight, is it those numbers, I guess minus the 5 deputies? You've given up on the 5 deputies?
Well, I haven't given up. I'd love to have them,
Okay.
but
I'm
I'm
just
trying to work with you.
I'm trying to figure out what is the number.
Take that number minus 600,000 and we're there.
Okay. And so that's why we're having a workshop, to work this out. There's been no final decisions made at this point.
Okay?
Do you guys have anything before I make a comment?
Well, first I wanted to start by thanking the public for coming out today to show your support for our local law enforcement. I am aware of the emails that have been circulating since last week, and it is my responsibility as the county administrator to ensure that our board, as well as the public, has accurate information. I'd like to address some of these items that had been categorized in the emails. Some of them were inaccurately stated. The email, we'll start with the first one. The email had claimed that the board recently and quietly gave our firefighters an increase, putting the entry-level firefighter above the entry-level deputy. This is not accurate. This increase was part of a negotiated union contract that had been over a year behind. This item had come in front of the board as part of the regular agenda item on June 20th. It was item 7I. A copy of the contract and negotiated salaries was presented as the backup material to that agenda item, clearly stating that the entry-level firefighter EMT had a starting salary of $41,531. So that's roughly about $4,000 below your entry-level deputy. We do have other positions within the fire department that do pay a little bit more than the entry level. But those salaries are based on the additional level of experience and education needed for those advanced certifications. Number two, the email that had gone out claimed that the board's budget actions have denied a pay increase for sheriff's personnel. This is simply not accurate. Through the board, we provide lump sums for law enforcement, inmate facility, and bailiffs, which are used at the courthouse. It is up to the sheriff's discretion on how he chooses to pay his employees or the benefits that he negotiates through their collective bargaining agreement. Number three, the email was also, again, urging the community to come out due to the county denying their pay increases. That is not a decision that the board has made or a decision that the board can make. We simply receive a proposed budget without any significant detail. Again, it's high level. It just talks about how much you need for law enforcement, how much do I need for the jail, and how much do I need for the courthouse. There is no detail as far as how many positions or how much these salaries are. And it is not our position, nor has it ever been our position, to modify, amend, or decrease at that line item or sub-object level. We don't simply do that. We can't. What isn't included in the sheriff's budget are additional costs that are carried on the board side of the budget. These operating costs annually exceed an additional $2 million in funding and support to your sheriff. These include additional expenses for his fleet repairs, all of his facility-related expenses that go along with the maintenance, utilities, your electric, water, sewer, gas, support for IT, support for the radio system, and support for the computer-aided dispatch. All of those costs are on the board side, not the sheriff's side. Additionally, there are some capital expenditures and costs for capital improvements, which are also included on the board side. I wanted to provide, you can see on this screen here, if you're able to take a look at that, I just wanted to provide a high-level overview of the funding received by the Sheriff's Office. In looking at this chart, it depicts the level of funding that the Sheriff's Office has received going back, and I can only put so many columns on here, so I apologize, but it does go back to 2018 through the tentative budget for next year. So when you're looking at this chart, the funding contracts from Palm Coast and the school board is what you're seeing depicted in that little blue column. The yellow column represents what Flagler County Board of County Commissioners provides in the way of funding. So with this chart, you can see a steady increase in the level of funding being provided to the sheriff over the years. We recognize that there are multiple factors that have caused this increase in funding. In looking alone at the change in population, and this is based on Bieber estimates between 2018 and 2022, in Flagler County, we have seen an increase of approximately 12,000 residents. So that's an 11% population increase that we have seen in our community. If you look at the budget numbers, there's an increase of funding between those years of $15.6 million in funding. So that's a 56% funding increase if you look at these numbers. The next chart, I've got another chart that we'll put up. This one, I'm not sure if there's a way to make that bigger, but this next chart represents the various capital projects that have been provided through the Board of County Commissioners over the last several years. So when you're looking at this, the total project amount is $42 million in projects in support of the Sheriff's Office. As you know, Board, we've been attempting to work with the Sheriff's Office through Chief Strobridge, trying to work in collaboration of an interlocal agreement that would provide a mechanism for the sheriff to recapture any unused budget from year end, and that would allow him to utilize that savings or that excess funding as part of the cash carry forward process for the following year. We have not been able to reach an agreement with the sheriff on that interlocal agreement. And there is also another outstanding issue regarding the transfer of IT services as it relates to the sheriff's office. We as staff anticipate that transfer to take place in January upon moving into the new Sheriff's Operations Center. Based on our current expenses, we have approximately $350,000 earmarked within our budget which covers providing that service for the entire year. This amount will be transferred to the sheriff to cover his expense. However, the actual cost for providing service by contracting it out, going with a different vendor, has not been provided to us. It will likely exceed our current level of funding. In closing, again, the budget's still a moving target. We do have one more workshop coming up where we can iron out these details. I'd like to thank the sheriff for his presentation tonight. This is the first time that I have actually seen their proposed methods to help close the gap. Prior to this evening, that information had not been shared with me. This gives us something to work with. And while I'm not requesting board take action tonight, I do look forward to receiving your guidance so that it can be incorporated into our final budget workshop on the 24th.
Can I just say something? You just said you're not looking for our, necessarily our comments tonight, but I'm going to give you mine.
I'm looking for your comments. I wasn't looking for you to take action
Yes,
necessarily.
I understand. I just want to say publicly that we need to figure out a way to work this out. We all prioritize public safety. We've all said it. The fact is, and the sheriff and I talked about it the other day, there's not one thing that we can do in this community unless we get public safety right first. Fire services. I promise you, I'm not doing it for that. I think I've put my money where my mouth is for the 6 years that I've been serving as a commissioner, and we're going to continue to do that. And I'm no different than the other commissioners up here. We all want the same thing. So we just need to make sure that we're getting the communication right on both sides and work this out. And I also want to say that I'm not, this formula stuff, if we commit to a budget, whether we decide to reduce the millage rate or not, then the budget has to stay the way we committed to, so that the sheriff can, move forward. We can all move forward. So just because we're probably going to have a discussion about reducing millage rate, but if we do, and we've agreed to a budget, then we're not going to go backwards on that. We're going to stick to it, and we're going to find the money other places to make it happen. So if you want to know where I stand on it, I think I've told you that, and we just got to figure it out.
I haven't had a chance to say anything yet, and I'm going to right now, but I'm going to kind of hold some of it back. I think I've made enough headlines. So, but you guys know I'm not shy of stepping out there in front of everything. And when I look out, I see men and women that have families, that have kids, they have to take care of them. And I got in a heated dispute, and they saw the nasty side of me with a commissioner that said, we don't need workforce housing in our community. If those people want to live somewhere like that, let them find another place. This was on a national level, not any of these guys. And I looked at him and I said, you're talking about men and women that serve our community and protect us, that are sheriffs, they're police, they're fire, and you're telling me they can risk their lives in the community and we can't take good care of them. You're right, my flyers taught public safety. I love it. My uncle was a director of a GBI, and my cousin was a sheriff. And, you guys have to put up with people like me every now and then. And we're not easy. But at the end of the day, I'm here, and my life is here because of a sheriff coming in and intervening in my life and saying you need to get help. So there is no limit to it. I don't want to get into where I'm comparing fire and police and this and that. All of it is important to me. All of it is very important. And I made a commitment 4 years ago. I came in here firing guns as hard as I could about that sheriff's ops center, and I feel the same way. I am prepared to step aside and make a motion, but I would really not want to make any more. I'd like to get this ironed out, maybe have it where we can talk, but I agree with you. I don't think we need to mess around with numbers. If we start messing with a millage rate and we say, okay, Sheriff, we're going to, guys, it's so confusing for me, and I sit up here, and all I know is that my job is to make sure you guys are taken care of, and through the sheriff. And Sheriff, you have always been straightforward with me. You've always been honest, and I've turned around and been the same with you. I am prepared to be that bull in the china shop, but I really rather not do that with my fellow commissioners if there's an opportunity. But I'd like to hear that from you. I'd like to hear, but again, I stand very strong. Don't mess with, if we mess with the millage rate and that messes with you, that's a joke. It's just a perception thing, and I don't want that.
Mr. Chairman, just before.
Yeah.
your response. There is one decision we've made so far as a Board of County Commissioners for the 22-23 budget, and that is the maximum millage rate that we can go to. We made that decision on July 11th. I have made no decision on whether we can come off that or not. So as this commissioner, 20% of the board goes, I'm still open to going up to that millage rate if necessary. But that's why we're having the meeting on August 24th, to just see where we are. So I just wanted to get that out. And the numbers are confusing, but they're not that confusing. The millage rate is locked in. We know what it is, and it's 8.4462. That's what it is, period.
So, Mr. Chairman, thank you, and I'm not going to go line item by line item with what your county administrator just said, because I think it serves no purpose except make headlines. What I do want to say, though, is just clarify a couple things. On the capital improvements, under Florida law, the sheriff cannot own property. It is up to the Board of County Commissioners, and here's the key word, to provide adequate facilities for the sheriff. Who the hell knows what adequate definition is, but that's what the law says, okay? So you're required to do that, not the sheriff, okay? You're required under Florida law to provide it for the sheriff. Now you decide what that provision is, okay? In my prior budgets, I can't talk about what happened before 2017, but in my prior budgets, I want to make it very clear, if merit increases, COLAs were funded by you, the employees of the sheriff's office receive them. And if I could, they got a little bit more, which I had to do 1,000 across the board. Didn't have to do it, quite frankly. I wasn't obligated to do it. But when inflation was taking off, we scraped the budget, and I found enough to give them not a one-time stipend, but I raised everybody's pay $1,000. I had to take it. I don't have reserves, so I had to take it, okay? The other thing that I want to comment on is your county administrator is correct. We will have our own IT. It will be less money than you're going to transfer to us. Not by much. It might only be $3,000, but it's going to be less money, okay? And I'm leaving county IT because, quite frankly, you've had a lot of turnover in county IT. And while they've done a good job with what they haven't been delivering what I need in the sheriff's office, unfortunately. I was the undersheriff here when the former sheriff did away with his IT and merged it with county. So I know the history, and I know what was going on. It's unfortunate. There's a new IT director. I've never met him. I know my chief of staff has. Seems like a good guy from what my chief of staff has told me, but it was frankly too little, too late at this point. And if there's $2 million sitting in other funds supporting the sheriff's office, give it to me in my budget because I can manage it better.
Sheriff, first I want to thank you for your presentation, and in my opinion, public safety is the top priority of government. I also want to thank the sheriff for being willing to work with us. You know, I've never once heard a police officer say something I hear in construction all the time. I don't get paid enough to do that. I couldn't imagine last night being told that. So I come back to us, and I see that we are going to a workshop. I'd like to ask the other commissioners if we can, and I agree with Commissioner O'Brien, everything he said, I 100% agree with. He couldn't have said it better. He's much better at putting things into words than I am. So I know I've got enough to make a motion and get a second if I step aside. But I really would rather see us do a consensus that we come together and we agree and we direct county staff to, and if the sheriff's willing to do this, we sit down one more time, work together, and we make sure that we do not impact the budget with the millage decrease if there is one. Because public safety is the most important. So Sheriff, that's what I'm asking right now.
I'm willing to work with you. Do you want me to start at 1.3 million difference or the 700,000?
I like the 700.
Well, then there's not much wiggle room.
Right, right. No, I'm saying when we sit back down and you think we can.
I'm absolutely willing to do that, but your county administrator is following your direction. And your direction right now is this stupid formula. And without you directing the county administrator and her staff to throw that formula out the window and be able to negotiate, her hands are handcuffed. I get it. I understand where Heidi's at. She's following what you guys have told her to do. So there's no way she can negotiate with me because she's capped under that formula.
But you've given us, I think, I wrote them all down. We can work with this.
Well, that's what I'm hoping to hear, Commissioner, because I'm
you
trying
got
to
it.
work with you.
You got it.
So I'm going to ask this first. Can I? Yeah, Commissioner Moran.
What I would, rather, this whole formula thing, that's a much bigger issue than just your budget. We got a lot of other things, and we've been working with that for many months now. I would rather we use the points that you made in terms of where we can close the gap, since the administrator is just really seeing that she has a chance to work with you guys to see if we can't close that gap over the next few days before we get to the workshop. And then hopefully it's done by then. And that's my suggestion.
Sheriff,
I haven't.
You go ahead.
Okay. Well, that's what I was going to say. I mean, based on the information you gave tonight, right, our administrator is going to go back with that information, and we're going to get together in the workshop to look at how we can work with the numbers. I mean, it's new information for the administrators. Got all the confidence in the world that there's something that we can do moving forward. Don't need to negotiate here on the dais tonight, but we've got a few days to work on it.
Yeah. And we will.
Can I say one last
Yeah,
thing, if
go
you don't
ahead.
mind, Mr. Chairman and Commissioner? We did a public records request, and we received a document that we were later told was draft of where money could come from. Okay, it didn't list the things that I mentioned today. So the only thing I ask is, a lot of these things that we were hearing are your heart pull strings. Okay? That's not negotiating. Negotiating is saying, here's where the money can come from. Here's the impact. But I heard Meals on Wheels, I heard a bunch of other stuff. That's not gonna fly with me. If we're gonna do true negotiation and work this out, then that's what I'm looking for, and I think that's what you're saying.
Sheriff, I'm real big about government not pushing things off. When I got in, we seemed to do a good job of that. And I don't think that's something that we need to do. And I want to leave this meeting very firmly with two things, if the other commissioners would give consent with it. One of them is that we find a way to get that $700,000, because we're talking about employees' raises. So we say, look, we're getting this. This is not something we're going to do. And the other one is not play with that millage rate, give you 700 and then take 300 away with whatever it is, whatever the numbers are. So I feel very strongly in setting a precedent, saying our objective is to get the 700,000 and then to not have the millage rate adjustment, if there is one, impact the sheriff's budget. So with that, I'd like to see if I can get a consensus with that, and you guys feel the same way. Commissioners? Or some input from it.
Yeah, I'm not so sure that we have to lock ourselves into that solution. I think there's a solution here that you gave us. I mean, work in the numbers, and I think we can get to where we can make you happy without killing something else, okay?
Commissioner, there is a way to do it, but the bottom line number is 700,000 if we defer the 5
Right.
deputies.
I don't care how we get there, I just want to
Yeah.
get there.
No, I think we can get there. We please talk.
Ma'am, I agree. I agree, but I want to let the sheriff run his department the way, I really don't want to tell the sheriff how to be the sheriff. I think if he comes back,
Tell her.
I understand, ma'am.
She's not,
We'll have open comment in a little bit, we can, yeah.
I have one comment. I tried to make the point about the millage rate, that the only thing that's locked in right now is we're not going to increase the millage rate. We have not locked in on a decreasing of the millage rate in any way whatsoever. That may be where the flexibility is. I don't know. I'm just saying that's a possibility of where some flexibility may be. That's all I'm saying.
Mr. Chair, in reaction to your point, I don't think we need to do that. I think we need to let the process play out. We have the sheriff's suggestions of how we can close the gap. Let the administrator work on that with the sheriff and the chief, and let's get it done so that we can then finalize things or have a much better direction at our workshop, because that's really the time where we start to nail things down, not tonight. The message was delivered loud and clear, very specific. I think we all got it. I think we had it before we got here, quite frankly. I know I did, but let's just get it. Let's just use those suggestions, however they work out, to get it done. Close the gap.
Tell
I
us what
think it's
time.
clear, I think it's clear that the 5 of us, our number 1 priority in the county is public safety. That's it. It's number 1. Okay, so don't worry about it.
Just let me know what time. I know it's on the 24th. Let me know what time. My staff and I will be there. And I just realized, for the official record, I started right into my presentation. In case anybody's wondering who's speaking, is Sheriff Rick Staley, Flagler County, okay? And if I could say one last thing, that for anyone that is watching and for you commissioners, any employee of the sheriff's office here tonight is on their own time. Okay? Thank you.
The workshop's at 1 PM on the 24th.
All right. Thank you, Sheriff, for that presentation, and thank you guys for coming in to this. This means a lot, and this helps us understand, which we already know, what this community needs. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and move to community outreach. It's a 30-minute process here, time period where we have to allocate for public comment. Anything on the consent agenda item or topic not on the agenda. Each
Chair.
speaker.
Mr. Chair, why don't you just
We'll give him a
hold
minute.
off
Yeah.
a second here?
Yeah.
Hello, Chairman. I just want to say my $1.83 savings could go to the sheriff. Thank you.
Or what?
How about we take a 5-minute recess, Mr.
Yeah,
Chair?
we'll take a 5-minute recess.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for coming in. Everybody will come in and have a seat. Give you a minute to get seated. And Commissioner Sullivan?
Right, I just wanted to follow up. When we did the proclamation, we didn't make a motion to approve it, so I make a motion to approve the National Preparedness Month 2022.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it, and that passes. All right, we're going to go ahead now and go to our 30-minute outreach. If you could please approach the podium, state your name and where you're from.
My name is Michael Feldbauer. I'm a resident of Palm Coast, Flagler County for 16 years. Most of you gentlemen, Mr. Chairman, and commissioners know who I am and what I do. I am a member of your county drug court team and also run the Flagler County Drug Court Foundation. And have been involved for the last 10 years in working in recovery in our community for people that suffer from both drug and alcohol addiction. I bring to your attention, and I brought the folder up, the flyer up to you, that August is International Overdose Awareness Month. August 31st being International Overdose Awareness Day. We started a couple years ago in 2019 with the Opioid Task Force having a dedication down at Flagler Beach at the Veterans Park. We had a meeting there. Last year it was on the courthouse steps. This year, the Flagler County Drug Court Foundation is putting together a walk over the bridge, starting at Wadsworth Park, ending at Veterans Park, hoping to make available to the community what is going on in the world of drug addiction and overdose. For the rest of the world, one of the things that we cannot be proud of in our county is that we have ranged in the last 2 years from the 5th highest to the 10th highest, and currently now about the 8th highest overdose county based on population of the 67 counties in Florida. We need to make more people in our county aware of what's going on, how they can help, how they can participate, and where they can go to get help. And that's what we're about. As an aside, just to mention, and I guess the sheriff is gone, but to thank our sheriff's department, okay, which is the one county agency right now doing more to help people in recovery than any other county agency. What they're doing out at the jail is just tremendous. They've done a great job, and they're helping. So, that being said, I'd like to invite all the commissioners and any of the people watching and listening to join us at 6:30 at Wadsworth Park on August 31st, which is a Wednesday evening, for a walk over the bridge to the Veterans Park in Flagler Beach, where we'll have some ceremonies and hear from some people that have gone through this, and hopefully make some people open their eyes to what's going on in our lives here. As a secondary thing, and actually it happens before that, on August 25th, as a member of the Flagler County Drug Court, I'm here to officially invite the commissioners and anybody else that would like to attend our drug court graduation. If you've been, you know how significant it is and what kind of day it can be, and we'd love to have you attend. We've changed a little bit of our format to where several of you gentlemen have had in the past an opportunity to be our guest speakers. We're now bringing back successful graduates to talk about what they went through, to help those that are still in the program, to give them hope. And that's what it's really all about. So gentlemen, I thank you. Look forward to seeing you on both occasions. Yes, sir.
Date and time, please, for the
I'm sorry.
drug court.
The graduation is August 25th, which is a Thursday, 10 a.m., currently set for courtroom 401. All right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
John Dance. Good evening. I proudly served the citizens of the great state of Florida for 28 years as a Florida Highway Patrolman, state trooper. Very dangerous job, as is all law enforcement. One of the most dangerous is a traffic stop. During my tenure, I was shot in the line of duty, and it was a traffic stop. I was injured multiple times They were all traffic stops. I had to run for my life while investigating a traffic homicide investigation. A speeding, reckless driver ran into my patrol car. It was parked in the median. All emergency lights were on. That was on I-4 at the Longwood Rest area. It totaled my patrol car. Speed and distracting driving was the issue. I have seen more dead bodies than most soldiers have as a traffic homicide investigator, most of them mainly caused by speed. I retired from the patrol as a decorated veteran. My point is that you, Mr. Chairman, Joe, have violated the unacceptable acts of an elected official by your arrogant and, I guess, entitlement attitude. Actions against the young and upcoming troopers trying to use your elected position to escape a violation. Your statements, I run the county, I'm over the state. Those statements are not true and unacceptable for an elected official. The Ferrari stop on I-95 is the most disturbing. Not only did you brake check the trooper, but when it was over, you showed more disrespect by speeding away, catching fourth gear before ever hitting the Palm Coast Parkway overpass, well in excess of 100 miles an hour. The I-4 trooper wrote in a report that you are extremely condescending, belligerent, illogical, and disrespectful. You threatened the trooper with a career-ending move if he arrested you. That's unacceptable for an elected official. You can't keep your house in order. You can't balance a checkbook. You can't manage a 56-unit apartment complex in Columbia County, Georgia. And I believe Austin Rogers got it right when he said you have no soul. At this time, I think that you should respectively resign. And if you don't respectively and peacefully resign, I think the County Commission Board should sanction you and remove you from the chair.
Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon. My name is James Williams. I'm retired lieutenant in the NYPD. I just want to bring something to your attention. At the time I was a sergeant in Highway Patrol, I had an officer that worked with me. We called him Hollywood. And we were in Bronx in Highway 1. Shortly after, he was transferred to the mayor's detail to work for Mayor Dinkins. He retired in 2001, 2002, and he moved to Palm Coast. I retired December 31st, 2001. I also relocated to Palm Coast. His name was Darrell Haywood. We called him Hollywood. Tall, lean. He was the esprit de corps of Highway Patrol. He was hired by FHP, Florida State Police, right away, and was put into a Camaro, which takes a long time to get. October 2nd of 2004, Darrell was killed in the line of duty, chasing a speed. Camaro blew a tire. He hit a tree at 105 miles an hour. So you doing 90 means I have to do 100 to 110 to catch you. For a stupid speed to get somewhere 2 minutes quicker, you're putting not only my life, but everybody else around the road in jeopardy. Because if I lose control chasing you, I'm going to hit something or somebody. So it's not worth it. I want to go home to my kids. Everybody wants to go home to their kids. To die for a speed is intolerable. And you just got to slow down. Just got to slow down. October 2nd, 2004, Darrell Haywood, you can look it up. He died on I-4. Lived in Palm Coast. Speed kills. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Angela Smith, Joyce Street. I was late for the meeting tonight because I just came from work, and I listened to Sheriff Stanley and saw all the families, and I'm honored to be in a community where there's so much passion within the people who serve us with the police, and I can see their dedication. However, I'm a 20-year educator. The same could be said for education. So the budget is the budget, no matter how you juggle it around, who you're going to please. I am not the best well-spoken, well-versed to say all of the similar things. I bet the right person could give a heck of a speech for education, just like Sheriff Stanley did. But I don't have that knowledge. What I do have is the passion and drive of an educator. And you know this time of year, what's happened, we are the worst state. I mean, the most vacancies of teachers, 9,000. So I would like you to pause from making a decision on the workshop just because your heart is into it, because I understand. You look at those people, you hear the story, I understand. But I can tell you my line item in a budget that I would come up with if I were the one giving that presentation, my line item would say workforce development, social emotional learning. These are things our community needs just as well as what the police officer. We need to get our community regenerated so that they have the tools necessary to overcome the obstacles, drugs, violence, whatever it is, but give them a carrot. And the carrot is career and technical education. We can provide 21st century skills to pretty much anyone who wants it. Why not spend the money where the positive outcomes are, I know they're statistically proven, I just can't show you, but just as much passion that Sheriff Stanley has had tonight and everyone that was here, the same thing could be said for educators. So please consider your budget and how you're going to fulfill the needs of our community and elevating us with the 21st century skills and the hope and the dreams that come along with being a citizen here rather than a jail cell line item and where we're going to put you when you make a mistake. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good evening, George Mayo, Palm Coast. I'd like to ask the chair at the beginning of the meeting to remind people to mute their phones so that you hear the ringing and everything just interrupts everybody, just for future. I was unable to see the workshop today. I don't know if the beach erosion was discussed, if there's anything on the table, anything on your mind. I know last time we were getting prepared to replace the sand on the beach. It was an argument of they had to have the orange sand and you had to have certain granular sand. Well, having been down there, you could see with the erosion, there's several layers of different sand. So are we going to have to replace the bottom layer with the gray sand that's there, and then the next layer with the white sand, and then the next layer of something else, and then bring in the orange sand? At this point, I wonder if we could argue with the DOT or the government, whoever made that decision, that you just need sand and to get it as quickly and as cheaply as possible without having to go out of state. I think that would remedy the situation to a certain extent immediately, and that looks like what's going to be needed. Thank you very much. Good evening.
Next speaker, please.
Hi, Denise Calderwood, Palm Coast resident, longtime Flagler County resident, a candidate, of course. But politics aside, gentlemen, you heard from the sheriff, you heard from all the police officers, you heard from the Honorable Mr. Dance, and thank you very much, John, I don't know where you are, but for the service. All the people here serve Flagler County, and they all serve Flagler County admirably, and if they don't, they have chosen to leave, where the sheriff has done investigations and asked those officers to leave, and that recently happened, with another candidate. And all that stuff is now all public record. It's all out there. And of course, during this time of the year, everything is dirty and we're all slamming people. But several of the candidates did not fill out ethical requests that the supervisor of elections asked us to do, because people are not being ethical, people are not being honest, and people are not being respectful of each other. And as said, all is said and done, and again, Commissioner Hanson, I do respect, your service and the way you've treated Janet and myself along the path. The issue remains that you all, and I've been here over a year, saying that we have a problem right here in Flagler County, and it is the chairperson. And I am addressing the chairperson, but of course he's not paying any attention, okay? And that's fine, because, he's somewhere else, he's probably high, or at least still using, because the way your behavior is, and you keep smiling, okay? You went on radio saying that I was drunk because I stood up here 3 weeks. Don't deny that you said that, Commissioner. Or Chair. I can't even say that because that in of itself is a joke. Okay, you're a joke. And I will clearly state that. If you want to make fun of me, let's do it, okay? The bottom line is, okay, what I respectfully request, if you all aren't going to take a stand to sanction, the chairperson, then at least all of you volunteer to take a random drug test. Volunteer to do that. And let's see where everything lies, okay? Because that's what we've done before in internal affairs. If you are not taking a stand against him, when our community is making a stand, or at least telling you. And 4 million people, gentlemen, how much money would that cost under economic development? We've had how much budgeted for economic development? Chair Mullins has done that all himself by his behavior and his, stupid actions, okay? And enough is enough. And we're looking for you all to make the right decisions. Thank you very much.
Next speaker, please.
Good evening, John Siberis from Sugar Mill Plantation. I've been coming to some of these meetings that you have for the last maybe year concerning Old Kings Road and the issues that are going on with that. You talked about having enough homes, making more homes, you're going to have more tax base, you're going to have all these things. And we all come up here and talk, we give you our opinions, but I never hear you guys really talk about what your opinions, what you really think, except a little bit today. But you had an opportunity to make a statement, a stronger statement to the sheriff, and to say, yes, we're going to vote on this, we're going to do it, and through the workshop, we're going to get it done. But you couldn't make a vote. Everybody left. But you didn't have the guts to say, this is what we're going to do. And I think it's wrong. You have to have the guts to stand up for the people. You said it yourselves, that you send all these brochures out. I got a bag full of them saying how you believe in the justice system, you believe in protecting the citizens. But you didn't have the guts in front of everybody else to say, we're going to vote on this and we'll figure it out. And you didn't do it. So do I trust yous? No. Simple as that. I don't.
Next speaker, please.
My name is Norman Roy. I live in Palm Coast. I'm a veteran of the submarine service, having served on 5 submarines. Dangerous duty. Nothing compared to being a police officer, especially today, with all the drugs coming across the open border, fentanyl, God knows how many terrorists are coming across. And when I find out that the fire department, and I was a volunteer fire department member back home in Rhode Island, it's dangerous business. We actually had a plane crash land on a Scituate Reservoir when it was frozen over. We actually drove trucks on a reservoir to save the people. But it's nothing like being a police officer. Every time you do a road stop, it may be your last time on earth because some wacko's got a warrant on him and doesn't want to be arrested and he's going to shoot you. vote on their increase so it's the same as the fire department. What is the problem? I am totally disappointed with Chairman Mullins. I met him quite a while ago. I'm a former member of the Trump Club. And I left because I couldn't speak my mind. I was told to shut up. I asked him, what could you do to lower the speed limit in the residential areas from 30 miles an hour, in which there are no sidewalks and children are walking to school, elderly people walking? And he passed it on to Andy Dance. Andy Dance said he would do something. I respect Andy Dance. At least he said he would do something. And I never yet heard of anything from Chairman Mullins about lowering the speed limit on residential roads that do not have sidewalks. It's common sense. Whether his actions as far as being stopped for speeding and his reaction to the officers, he has to look into the mirror himself. And every other commissioner has to look into the mirror themselves and say, do we really want him as a chairman? Does he really believe and act the way I would if I was stopped by a police officer? And I have been stopped by a police officer. And you respect the police officer and you take what is due you. You don't argue, you don't ask for favors, that's it. So it's on every one of you to do the right thing, including the person I'm looking at right now. Change your behavior. Thank you.
Next speaker, please.
Marty Evenson, Palm Coast. I was very fortunate in my life to negotiate for some labor organizations. And I understand budget, I really do. The organization that I went against, when I used to listen to the young lady over here, I forget her name, I apologize. That's what they threw at us. But as Sheriff Staley said, that's the responsibility of the state and the council. They have to give you the accommodations to work at. I look at the flag, I get emotional because everybody says that. We honor those who serve. But they don't. Because when you honor those people who put their boots on the asphalt, you have to give them a substantial amount of money so they don't have to go home and budget things out that they need. And so we would always say this: shoot for the star, settle for the moon. But you start high. I would suggest you start at 52,000 and then work your way down, and maybe you can get to the point where it is. And I read all this, so I understand you have a budget for everything. But in any budget, there's things you can cut in other areas. When they said he was willing to give the 5 sheriffs back, that would not be acceptable. Because with the increase of population here, and with the increase of people coming into Flagler County from Orange County, Duval County, and all else to do their hideous things over here, because they don't think they have enough people to police this area, you can't just say, no, we're not going to give you the 5. I would say, again, start at 52, work your way down. But please, don't give up their medical. That's the most important. In any negotiation, medical is the most important. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hello, Leanne Pennington, Flagler County resident, candidate for County Commission. Apologies, I've been up since 4 a.m. setting up tents and to defend my beliefs. Thanks for that pack mailer, Joe. I really appreciate it. Nothing like having to tell person after person that I not a liberal. I am a lifelong Republican. You know that. It's public record. You can see it. I didn't appreciate it. It wasn't fair. And after it's over, win or lose, you owe me an apology.
Next speaker, please. All right, seeing nobody else is approaching the podium, I'm going to go ahead and close out public comment. And we'll go ahead and move on to consent, constitutional officers, the consent agenda. We'll have board comments and consent items on that. So Commissioner Dance, anything?
No, sir, good.
Commissioner Hampton?
Just a comment to the staff, if you're going to put a company's name in the write-up, then tell us what it is in the backup material. That just confused me today. That was 7M, but it's fine. I talked to Mr. Bauer. I got it. Thanks.
Commissioner Sullivan?
Yeah, nothing to pull, but I point to items 7E, 7F, 7G, all tourist development grants for organizations that are coming in and bringing people in to stay in our rooms, and gives that 5% bed tax that helps us fund a lot of things that we've been talking about tonight, actually. So I just wanted to say we'd take a look at those. It's some significant amounts of dollars, and not only that, but I'll say my comments for the one that we'll discuss later for the Tourist Development Council. Thank you.
Commissioner O'Brien?
No, sir.
And I just want to point out we've got a lot of grants and items on there that are really important as far as for the county, bringing in funding from different sources, and you know, why our economy is so important and why growth is so important. We've got to have the smart growth, and we've got to have that coming in, because we've got a lot of we've seen a lot of things here today that show it. So it's great having these grants offset some. With that being said, there were no items to pull. I'll go ahead and...
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second. We'll go ahead and open up to, do we need to do public comment? I think we did that, yeah. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. We'll move on over to item 8A in general business, and this is the discussion on interlocal agreement for public school facility planning, including proportionate share mitigation, and request for Oversight Committee to extend the termination of the agreement from September 1st to November 9th. And staff requests the board to discuss it and take action on the two items related to the school planning interlocal agreement. Oversight Committee, extension to the termination date to the current ILA for September 1st to November 9th. Timing of appropriation share mitigation payments payable in equal 30% installments, with initial payments due upon final plat and site plan for multifamily units, approval with the second installment payment due 21 months after the first payment, and final installment payment due 21 months after the second payment, 42 months after the initial payment, with the remaining 10% to be collected as educational facilities impact fees. And this was requested by Sean Moreland, Deputy County Attorney, and Adam Mingle, Growth Management Director.
Mr. Chairman, before they start, I wanted to make a couple of points. And maybe, Al, did you want to say something first?
The only thing I want to say was an introduction for Sean, who's been appointed the Deputy County Attorney, as you know, who has shepherded this project from its inception, and just how much he has worked on it with great integrity, deliberateness, respect to all the stakeholders, and that we're just very proud of him. And it confirms that he is the best choice as Deputy County Attorney.
So, I agree.
Yeah, we already knew that.
So, Commissioner Dance and myself are on a thing called the School Planning Oversight Committee. And we've been having meetings. Working for that group is the working group that Sean is one of the key players. He's a lawyer and he can work this thing out. I just wanted to point out to the commission before we get started, maybe Sean can make this point. The thing we wanted to vote on tonight is the extension of the current ILA until November 9th. And that's critical so that development can continue in the county and not have to stop at September 1st. You'll remember as a Board of County Commissioners, we voted to extend it, to cancel the ILA after 120 days. That was September 1st. We've been working with the working group, but the group, the School Planning Oversight Committee, of which Andy and I are members along with the cities and so forth, we have not agreed to anything beyond that. In other words, I am very leery of the second item here, which is the 30-30-30 item. We really still are awaiting actual language and something that the School Planning Oversight Committee can recommend. That will come back to us again. So we're not missing anything here. So I personally think it's a good idea to be aware that there's some progress being made. That's why we're asking for the extension. But I think I would be very leery of doing a vote approving any kind of plan at this point, because the School Planning Committee, the Oversight Committee we're talking about, has not voted on that. We'll probably vote on that September 8th once the legal language is prepared, and then we'll go from there. So I think item 1 is important to get done, the extension, but not do anything to approve anything in the way of what we're going to approve at this point. That's my point.
Yes, thank you. Chair and Commissioner Sean Moylan, Deputy County Attorney. And I will follow up on Commissioner Sullivan's comments and ask that whatever motion comes out of this tonight focuses on the extension of the ILA. If you'd like to give us general comments on the proposed payments plan, that is the second half of what's displayed up there, that would be fine, but it doesn't need to be part of the motion tonight. That will come back to you in the form of a written agreement with precision. But any sort of direction or comments is always welcome. So what we're doing here tonight, or what we're asking you to do, is to extend the deadline that we had previously given for the termination of the current interlocal agreement. 120 days was the time period provided for in that interlocal agreement. It's what we availed ourselves of. And it should have been plenty of time, but we weren't able to get to an agreement on this last sticking point, and that's the reason we're here asking for an extension. It's not a matter of not being able to get the words on the paper, but rather multiple parties wrestling with some rather complex issues and with many different stakeholders, and we just couldn't come to the meeting of the minds in order to get the words on the paper. The last meeting of the Oversight Committee, that is where the elected officials from the various bodies come together with Commissioner Sullivan and Commissioner Dance in attendance, there was consensus on this general framework, and I think everybody came away from that meeting with a positive feeling and a commitment to double down and to get this job done. The November 9th deadline that we're asking is more than enough time, and it was clearly stated at the Oversight Committee, we're sticking it out a little further because in case some wrinkle arises, we don't want to come back and ask again. In fact, what I predict will happen is on the Friday before the Memorial Day weekend, the staff will distribute via email the interlocal agreement, the new one.
Labor Day.
Labor Day. I got my holidays mixed up. The Friday before Labor Day, thank you, we'll distribute that rewrite, and the following week, the Oversight Committee will work. They will meet with a completed agreement in draft for their recommendation back to you and the other various bodies. We should be able to get this approved at our second meeting in September. We're not going to be waiting to November 9th. We're just giving ourselves a little extra cushion. Plus, the municipalities have a longer process of approving this item. Many of them are going to workshop it first and then approve it. So we're giving ourselves the extra time to get that done. If you have any questions on the specifics, I'm happy to dive into the weeds. I've been ensconced in this subject matter for several months now, and I can talk about any aspect of it. The general idea is that we wanted to get a mitigation payment regime in place that was standardized, predictable, and fair to both the school district, who needs to plan for future facilities, as well as the development community, who has to plan for their own revenue streams and their own business ventures. we hope we've struck that balance and that we can get this one wrapped up. And another comment, while I have you as the audience here in a public meeting, one thing I'd like to stress, my takeaway from going through this process is that we need to be more involved with this interlocal, engaged in what it tells us we're supposed to be doing. We need to be meeting with the school district staff more often along the way, and not waiting until the schools reach a point of overcapacity and a little bit of a crisis before everyone realizes, oh, we got to deal with this. There needs to be more interaction along the way together going forward. That's my takeaway from the 30,000-foot level.
Commissioners?
Well, I've said my piece. I think we're waiting further comments or motion.
No, I think it's pretty clear. We just need to do you want to do a motion?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I move that we extend the termination date of the current ILA from September 1st, 2022 to November 9th, 2022.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. All in favor? Well,
you need
public comment.
Public.
Yeah, sorry. We'll go ahead and open it up to public comment. Anyone wishing to comment on this item, please approach the podium.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Greg Blasset, President and CEO of the Losing Pen, Palm Coast Flagler Regional Chamber. First, let me just second what the county attorney has said about Sean's involvement and representation of the county in those meetings. He has been amazing and has really helped drive the process. So we're sitting here talking about an extension, and that's in addition to all the work that he's already done. So the chamber is here today to say we support the extension. It's needed to get us across the finish line. So that's number one. The second thing I wanted to add and comment on was when you read the detailed agenda before you today, Sean wrote a memo in there and it says we're not really adhering to the current interlocal agreement potentially. And I think that's very concerning. I do think this new process, when it's adopted, if it's adopted, will be more transparent and provide more consistency for anybody looking to do business in Flagler County. But between now and then, I think it's important for the commission to state that we should be adhering to the existing interlocal agreement as it stands now. I'm not going to read Sean's memo. Hopefully you've already read it. Last thing I would say is what Mr. Moylan mentioned regarding more involvement with what's happening with the school system. I think is absolutely necessary, especially if we're going down a path that says Flagler County is going to enter into concurrency, which is another way of saying, hey, we have a crisis here. We haven't properly planned to build schools in Flagler County, and now we have capacity and level of service issues. So if we're going to go down that path of telling developers that they should front millions and millions of dollars before they build a single house, regardless of what the payment plan is going forward, I think there are a number of things that we need to have on the table in terms of transparency and accountability that talk about what it is, the situation that we're in. How much money has been exacted from developers? How many development orders have come through? How many new kids have come through? How many permits are being pulled? What's the process? What's the progress on the new schools? So I think at bare minimum, if I may, just every 6 months, there should be some sort of report. Once in the middle of this, we already have an annual ILA meeting happening, but I would say at the 6 months mark in between that, it makes a lot of sense to have the school district come and talk about and provide information on how much they've collected on impact fees. Are the projects moving forward? Are we still in a crisis? Do we still need to have concurrency in Flagler County? And I think that should last throughout the duration of concurrency, but that's my take. So just to recap the three things, more involvement, I think yes, absolutely. Adhere to the current interlocal agreement. I hope y'all will consider that. And yes on the extension. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. Robin Paletta, Halifax Plantation. My only comment is to have the termination of the deadline extended to November 1st instead of November 9th, which would be after the election. So why not make a decision before the election so we're more transparent on where people stand? Thank you.
Next speaker, please. All right, seeing nobody else is coming up, I'll go ahead and bring it back to the commission.
Mr. Chair, just a little follow-up in line with Mr. Blase's comments, and then thinking about Sean's comments. I don't know if you can get to this in the additional negotiations, but to reinforce the point of making sure we do follow the process going forward. I don't know if we can add that language in the agreement, and also, more transparency in terms of reporting data to us, and so we have a good feel for what's going on going forward. Because it was a process that was broken down for a long time, and I don't know if we can add that in the language or reinforce it in the language, but I would, and it doesn't have to be part of this motion. I'm just adding to the discussion. So.
And I think that's the kind of thing, since we have two members of the School Planning Oversight Committee, myself and Commissioner Dance, I think that is the kind, because I agree with Mr. Blase's comments, and I think in this new kind of spirit of cooperation with the various parties involved with this ILA, enforcing the current ILA and maintaining that we do that will be a good sign that cooperation will continue into the future. This has been very enlightening, this between the impact fee increases and what's been going on for the last year. We've all become a lot more aware of the school system and the school board and their funding. And I might point out, I can't resist saying this, the lady who came up and said we ought to be putting more money into the schools. That may be true, but that's not what we do with our budget. That school board budget is taxed separately on your tax bill, and you don't want us to run the school system, to be honest. So just in case that was left. So that's my thought on what we've heard.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to react to that. In redrafting this ILA, I was very careful, and those that I'm working with, we realize we want to write something that we're actually going to be able to implement. And so we're trying to keep it simple, follow the statute where required, not to add a lot of fluff. In fairness to those who wrote the current ILA back in 04-05, it was a new thing back then, and they were operating from scratch, and they wanted to cover their bases, but it ended up with too much detail of things that were never truly followed. But we are well aware of that concern.
Thanks. So it's the time to heap praise upon Sean, which I'm a big fan, having watched him go through the process from developing his own idea of capacity reservation system, which I had hope for, but I do think that that the discussion on transparency and collaboration is really important moving forward with items that are built into the ILA with more frequent meetings, which we've talked about, only because the 30-30-30 plan still requires a level of trust in the school district's numbers. And the more that we get together with them and have open dialogue, the more we'll begin that trust process where we understand how they're coming up with things, and we have a better trust in numbers, because that's a big hurdle that we have to get past. I do think we need consensus on, because we left the Oversight Committee with everybody in agreement with the 30-30-30 plan, and then the attorneys going back to work on the final details. So all the municipalities had come to that Trevor's plan to compromise on those numbers. So I don't want them, and our involvement is critical, so I don't want them working on something if there's not a consensus on the 30-30 plan. So I think we don't have to vote, but I think if we've got consensus, that just gives me comfort that they're working on something that will come back to us with at least that level of input.
Right. I think we should do that. and have a consensus on the 30-30, and I vote for that. I think we
Okay.
should do that.
Consensus, not a motion.
No,
Consensus.
no. But I
And,
mean,
and the one thing, Andy, I didn't get the feeling that the school board, even with Tucker's change to the 30-30, was there quite yet. But I might be wrong on that, but that's kind of where I think. So that's one of the reasons I didn't want to do a motion tonight. I want to make sure on September 8th, we have full agreement.
well, there's still a party to the process.
Right.
So,
But I think Andy's right. I think we should, as a group, say, okay, we're
Keep going.
good with that.
I'm good with the process so far.
I am as well. To use some corporate speak, I think it's directionally correct. So.
Right.
Well, we've got a consensus on that, and we've got a motion on the floor. So let's bring it back. All in favor, say aye.
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 And that is, the motion passes, and that's with pushing or looking towards the 30-30. Okay?
And can I add one clarification for the comment? November 9th is the ultimate deadline. Sean talked about the process and that most of the governments are in line to get this thing done in September. And we just didn't want to set a date too close to where if somebody didn't set a meeting on the right time and didn't give proper notice for their government, that we ran into an issue.
I think it'll be clear how people are going to vote on it by then.
Now we'll go ahead and move on to item 8B, consideration of Flagler County Tourism Development Council to fund 1109 capital project grant funding, and this is by Amy Lukasik. I'll let you talk about it.
Thank you. Amy Lukasik, Tourism Development Director. Before I introduce the applicants, I just wanted to provide the board a brief overview of the grant program for Fund 109, which is for capital projects. This is the first time we're coming before you with the revised criteria. Last time we were up here was in 2018. So prior to January 2020, we had the program set up that the only eligible applicants were government agencies, and they could apply for $150,000 2 times every 5 years. So when the tourism office had their strategic plan, this was one of the items that was brought up. Perhaps maybe we should revise and look at this program, which we did, and we workshopped it. And the biggest changes that we made was, one, we opened it up now to nonprofits, and we also allowed the applicant to apply up to 50-50. So we took away the $150,000 cap because we all agreed that doesn't really get you much these days. So in January 2020, we brought forth the new guidelines to the TDC, and it was approved by the BOCC. And we decided that since we are upping the amount that can be awarded, that we should do the grant program every 2 years. So we'll be on a 2-year cycle. So we kind of said, let's let the fund collect a decent amount of money so that the applicants had a good project to put forward. So what we did in January of 2021, and then we went before the BOCC in February of 2021, we went to the TDC for that first 2 years, and we said, okay, this is how much we've collected in Fund 109 for the past 2 years, and here's how much is available. So it was recommended that they distribute 80% of that, which came to the $739,158. And so one of the important components to this program, to the TDC, they wanted to outline specific goals and objectives. And obviously, number one is we want to make sure we're following the Florida statutes, which is able to use to acquire, construct, and extend, enlarge, remodel, repair, or improve capital projects. We want to support facilities that raise the community's profile, enhance county's economy, including the vital tourism industry, and attract events to bring overnight visitors, and provide partnership funding to facilities that best use the TDT funding to deliver the proposed economic and promotional benefits. So for this program, who is eligible, like I said, still government agencies and now nonprofits. This grant program is a 50-50 cash match at minimum. Successful applicants, they'll be required to enter into a funding agreement with the county, setting forth the terms, conditions, timelines, and deliverables associated with receiving the TDT funding from Flagler County. So this was an important piece to the TDC, that there would be some accountability to the applicant based on what they approved. So we will work with the applicant and the county attorney when we spell out those terms. And this is still a reimbursable grant, so they have to prove that they spent the money appropriately and that they paid for it. And the applicants, the other new piece that we did is we scored, or the TDC scored, and you can each application can receive a maximum of 20 points. Anything below 14 is not eligible, so I won't read all the criteria that they're scored on, but it's listed there before you. And this applicant received an average of 17 points from the TDC. Also, what we added is that additional acknowledgement to the county and to the TDC for projects that we do fund, and that reporting. So the BOCC and the TDC will have signage where appropriate on the website of the applicant, any printed materials, our logo, or some type of verbiage that says this project is funded in part by Flagler County Tourism Development Office. There's also now quarterly reports, and this is where the applicant will just provide an update of the timeline for the project, and then that will be reported to the TDC on our quarterly meetings. There's a project completion report that they have to fill out as well. And then there's project impact reports. So there's reporting for 3 years after the project is finished, so that we can continue to work with the applicant to make sure they're meeting their goals of what they put in the application, and any other promotional or items that we can help them with. And this is the timeline. Today, we're here for BOCC approval recommendation from the TDC. And then if applicable, most people, or some people have asked me what happens if all the money wasn't awarded, or if there was still money available, then this is the new deadlines for an application. And so let's just say we had no applicants come this funding cycle, it's still in this meeting, then they could come at the next TDC meeting. So the money would be available till the next 2 years. And so if all the funding is awarded today, which is what was recommended by the TDC, this is the next cycle. So we're currently in the process of collecting those funds. So January of 2023, we will go before the TDC and say, this is our past 2 years, what do you recommend to do? And the reason, and then they would come before the TDC again in 1.5 years. And the reason we did that is so that the applicants know how much money is available to be awarded, and they can start planning and budgeting. So they've got 18 months, because with government, obviously, they need time to budget, and nonprofits, they need time to raise funds or do fundraisers. So we're trying to give ample time for that. So I'll be happy to answer any questions about the criteria. And the applicant is here. One of the criteria is to give a presentation, and the applicant is the City of Palm Coast, and we have Lauren Johnston, Carl Cody, Brittany McDermott, and James Hurst, who have been fantastic to work with, and I will turn it over to them.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. Lauren Johnston, Assistant City Manager, and we have our team here that has worked tirelessly on this project the past couple years to present this proposal to you. We are proposing an addition to our Palm Coast Tennis Center and rebranding the opportunity as our Palm Coast Southern Recreation Center. So just a little bit of history about Palm Coast and our legacy in sports. ITT created our community and really drawed in three magnets of opportunities, being tennis, golf, and water sports. These were served as residents and also a tourism attraction. If anybody remembers the old Players Club, Andre Agassi was a frequent participant at that facility, and we have our own nationally recognized star, Riley Opelka, who's from our community as well. As you mentioned, Commissioner Sullivan, our cooperative planning and also partnerships, our mayor and city council have recognized a strong vision for our future and unified our community by working collectively with our partners and stakeholders to provide various different services. We've seen this partnership with adding the Med Nexus with University of North Florida and Jacksonville University into our town center. We're working cooperatively with Flagler County on a cultural arts initiative and expanding those opportunities in our arts district and town center, as well as a future ILA that will include a master parks and recreation plan, including our westward expansion. So the city and the county want to work together on establishing what does parks and recreation look in our community, update our parks master plan, and establish one for you. And then we're working cooperatively with Flagler Schools, providing joint aquatic services and also our Innovation Challenge. Our Palm Coast Southern Recreation Center will bring not only racket and paddle sports under one location, but it's also going to tie in a community amenity as well. We will be able to provide amenity space in our upstairs story that will have an open gym flooring area, and then also a community room that can serve as a tournament host space, whether it's letting the players rest in between matches, but these available flexible spaces upstairs will offer a bandwidth and host variety of options in our facilities. I'm going to turn it over to Carl Cody, who is our Director of Stormwater and Engineering, and he is going to give you a conceptual design walkthrough.
Yes, good evening. I'm going to kind of walk you through the project and showcase what our future intent is and what this project entails. We have a couple of videos here that we will play for you. So you can see here we are showing the outside of the complex, all the various courts. We have 10 existing clay tennis courts at the facility. A future addition will add additional courts. We currently have a double-wide trailer out there now as a temporary clubhouse. This building here is part of the project that we're constructing, as well as these pickleball courts. You can see some of those are going to be covered.
Does that excite you, Greg?
So our current phase will include 12 pickleball courts. There'll be 6 covered, 6 uncovered, and then there'll be some additional hard courts, some junior courts as well, and then some additional clay courts. But currently in this phase, there'll be the permanent clubhouse and then the 12 pickleball courts. And we'll jump down into the building here and kind of walk you through the building itself in the next video. So this here will take you into the building. This building is going to provide some of the needed items and necessities that are required to host certain events and tournaments. Spaces for officials, locker rooms, those sorts of things that are required to hold certain events and tournaments at the facility. We have some outdoor covered balcony area here. This is off of the main lobby. And there's a food serving counter as well to serve people. This is the main reception desk, and there'll be to be able to handle customers, and as well as a walk-up, another food service counter indoors. As you walk down this space here, this is a multi-versatile space. This could be for checking in players during tournaments. Could be a lounge area. It's going to serve different functions based on activities that are happening. These here are the covered pickleball courts. There's a balcony above that also looks down on those pickleball courts. It'll be similar feel for Daytona down in Holly Hill if anyone has visited that facility down there. On the left here are the locker rooms for men and women. And then as we head upstairs, this is where we get into some of those community function spaces. We have several spaces on the second floor. We have an outdoor area to oversee the tennis courts on one side, and then an outdoor area on the other side for the pickleball courts. This is a multifunction room. This is going to be able to host various types of programs and events and accommodate the community's needs as well as needs during events or programs. And then next door to this space is pretty much an identical sized room which has access to the outdoor balcony space. So you can see this one's laid out with tables and chairs and can just show you that the number of people that the space can handle. This has the direct connection to the outdoor balcony that overlooks the tennis court side of the complex. So move on to the next slide here and start talking about some of the funding. The city currently has a construction management firm that we've negotiated a guaranteed maximum price. They're a CM at risk. And these are some of the dollars associated with that project, the permanent clubhouse and the 12 pickleball courts. You can see it's over $11 million. We show we have three different types of funding sources that are connected to the project. We have our CDC grant at the $739 roughly. That accounts for about 7% of the project, so we're well under that 50-50 match. We have park impact fees. As you know, all this development happening and we're collecting impact fees, we're able to use this for new capacity improvements for park-related elements. And then this project falls within our Town Center SR 100 CRA, and so we're able to reinvest dollars collected in that area into projects, and this is a project that was identified, and those dollars are also helping to fund the existing citizens' share of new capacity improvements. So this project is ready to move forward. This is a real number. It's a contract waiting to be executed with the construction management firm. We're looking to start and move ground in October tentatively right now, so we're ready to go. I'm going to move on with some further information from Brittany.
So now taking a look at how we could utilize the expansions of this project, we do currently offer pickleball tournaments. We have very limited resources to do so. We have no current dedicated pickleball space. We do share our tennis courts and our public parks. But even with that, we do host, we're looking at 9 tournaments this year that average about 65 players each. So they have been very popular, but looking at the expansions of the project that Carl just showcased, we're really going to be able to increase the offerings throughout the year, but also the nature of the tournaments themselves, going from a single-day tournament, which is typically what we offer now, to multi-day tournaments where we are recruiting people in to stay in hotels and make more of an event and an economic impact out of that. Also taking a look at our current tennis tournament that we offer, which is with the USTA Pro Circuit. That's been very successful with the $25,000 purse. It's something that we have hosted for 11 years now at our current tennis center facility. One of the problems is we have not been able to break into the women's pro circuit, even though we really would love to. The men's pro circuit has been very successful. We were able to secure 18 room nights with our last tournament in 2020, and we saw over 629 spectators throughout the week. So we'd love to branch into that women's pro circuit, but we can't because we don't have the dedicated locker room space that is required for that. With the expansion of this project, we would be able to branch into the women's pro circuit because we would have the proper amenities to support a tournament such as that.
I didn't notice in the diagram stadium seats or bleachers, so where do the spectators go to watch the tennis tournament?
So Carl mentioned how we had some viewing space. There was the first story and second story to overlook the courts. I know the stadium seating would be part of a future phase, but there was some dedicated space. And we are accustomed to bringing out bleachers or things like that to have spectator space as well. And then also, not to mention, we could branch into some other opportunities such as the ATA National Tournament and Juniors Tournaments. We have a very robust youth tennis programming, but we haven't really been able to branch into that tournament angle because of the limited amenities that we do currently have. But again, with the upgrades of this project, we would be able to branch into that. And we have seen interest from USDA in us providing that opportunity. We've been building those relationships currently. So taking a look at the hotel stays, we are looking at recruiting 5,400 room nights the first year and then growing each year after that. That's our goal. And we looked at the Visit Florida report that does state amateur sports brings in an average 4.3-day stay. So we took that and broke that up between both our tennis and pickleball tournaments. We hope to have 12 tournaments throughout the year, essentially monthly. And looking at some of those average recruitments that we are looking at from our current pickleball tournaments, such as 65 players, we feel that we could get that and more through the facility upgrades and having future tournaments. And then as Carl mentioned, there was also that room space that was available in the building on the second floor. We see that as a room rental opportunity, kind of similar to our Palm Coast Community Center. We can tap into the market of professional networking and things like that. USTA and USPTA both have those requirements of training, professional development. They're looking for conference locations, things like that. So we hope to recruit 30 conferences throughout the year to also bring in some of those hotel stays and make an event out of it now that we have those amenities to offer through this upgrade. So that was something that we are very excited to look forward to as well. And then the important part is talking about the strategies to bring in those hotel room nights. What's great is that we are already an established department with tried and true methods for marketing. We've seen the success at our Indian Trail Sports Complex and the tournaments that we recruit throughout the year through that. And also some of our partnerships, such as Advent Health being a major sponsor of ours through many events, our senior games, our media partners. We have these tried and true methods. We know they're successful. We've seen the success of them, and we would model that for this facility as well and just continue that success. And I'm going to, oh, did you have something?
I didn't notice the Tourist Development Council on there.
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up. I should have definitely mentioned them. They've been an amazing supporter throughout our Indian Trail Sports Complex and other events as well, and we would definitely lean into them and the resources that they have available to us. And I'm going to turn it over to James Hurst.
Thank you.
For the remaining slides.
Well, good evening, everyone. I will round us out for the evening. So a couple of things that Palm Coast is known for is, our high quality facilities, our skilled staff, and our top-notch maintenance. Brittany mentioned it earlier about Indian Trail Sport Complex. That kind of capitulates what I just said up here, that with the high quality facilities, every year we see the same organizations come back to use our fields because of just the quality of them. And then that continues our working relationship with the TDC, us as the city, and then also local and external sport organizations that keep coming back every year. And then we look at our innovation and commitment to nature. So we always try and spearhead our projects using, innovative ways to continue our environmental impact on the community. What we have here is, Brittany mentioned it earlier a little bit about our Palm Coast Community Center, and we've seen a huge success since we opened it up. I think it's 5 years old now, and we see our biggest room is hitting over 100 rentals pretty much every year. And then we also mentioned briefly about having USTA come in and doing international events, conferences, things like that. And we're actually having these right now at our community center. So good example is the International Society of Arboriculture Tree Conference. And that required some people coming in internationally using some hotel room nights in Palm Coast. And then also Indian Trail Sport Complex. You know, just not is it local, but it is Southeast kind of United States. We see people from Georgia come, Alabama, Tennessee. We've even had some international people come over as well and use our fields. So we'll continue our high quality facilities and top-notch maintenance on this facility that we're proposing tonight. And then again, our commitment to nature. All our facilities are LEED Silver certified, especially our community center. So this would be in line with that. We would have, I don't think we didn't talk about it, but like our covered area would have solar panels, kind of like at the community center, at Holland Park, at Central Park. All this kind of leads to that LEED Silver certification, kind of creating a better environmental impact for the local area. And then just briefly touch on some previous money we received from grants from the TDC that's helped our Indian Trail Sport Complex. So a big one here would be the baseball improvements over in 2018. Finished last year or the year before, and then we had the Little League State Championship come in, which was really awesome. We had Governor Rick DeSantis come. He came through the first pitch. All the kids loved it, and then from then on, we had multiple requests for field usage at the sport complex. So it was a good thing, him coming around. It beefed up our profile a little bit, and then working with TDC, bringing in more people to use our complex and create more of that impact there for the community. Other than that, that is really the end of our presentation. We'll probably kind of tag team questions if anyone has any, and then thank you.
So just want to give you a conclusion that sports and sporting is part of our tourism that Palm Coast brings in, from attracting teams from Georgia, South Carolina. We've seen that success at our Indian Trail Sports Complex through soccer tournaments, lacrosse tournaments, and love is a big thing in Palm Coast, and we hope to keep it growing. And we're happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yes,
One question. So obviously we have to track room nights. So when you have a tournament, do you give out a discount code, or is there something that when these people are booking their room nights, they get credited appropriately for the event?
Yes, we do reach out to the hotels and ask for them to provide a room block. Sometimes we will put in connection the tournament organizer with the hotel so that they know a preferred venue to stay. And then we also work with the TDC. There's various different other grants that tournaments can apply for to secure room nights as well.
Just to follow up on that, this capital project is a little different because it's a long-term. It's not a single event or a couple of events. So the room nights, that's part of the presentation to tell us that this will have an impact over a long period of room nights.
Right, but they have to verify. I mean, ultimately, they have to live up to the numbers that they're putting in here.
Yes, and it'll be, as Amy and I have worked through in the past, it'll be a part of that funding agreement that we work through, is providing the backup documentation that the city is providing what we said we would.
Right, yeah, we have that set up.
Great presentation. I just want to know if the mayor is going to negotiate with us on the size of the font where it says this project is funded in part by the Flagler County Government Tourist Development Department.
You got a thumbs up.
I have to say that we...
Because I'm looking forward to seeing that on the entrance sign.
Right. And I would say on these capital grants, you set a very high standard. This is the first one for future requests for this funding. Yours was done very professionally, and I think it's a good image to go forward with what we're going to expect when you go after these capital events as opposed to grants, as opposed to just the single event grants.
Thank you, Commissioner. Our team worked really hard on putting that together for you guys. Thank you.
All right. No other questions?
Mr. Chair, I would make a motion that we approve this item and the funding of the grant request.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. We'll go ahead and open it up to public comment. Anyone wishing to comment on this item, please approach the podium. State your name, where you're from, and speak away.
Yes, George Mayo, Palm Coast. I didn't hear the exact location where this is going in. If somebody could please give me that information. But also this weekend, for the first time ever on national live TV on CBS, there was 2 hours of the PPA, Professional Pickleball Association, had their women's doubles and the men's doubles finals. And they were saying that several times live for the first time on national TV. It was on CBS. So the sport is just growing leaps and bounds, and I think that will attract people here. And included in that, they interviewed Drew Brees, retired NFL quarterback, who has invested and bought a team with the team pickleball sports in mind. So good idea. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Just tell them where it is.
I'm going to answer Mr. Mayo's comments. This location is included in our Palm Coast Tennis Center, which is located off Belterre behind Fire Station 25.
Thank you.
Greg Blasset, President and CEO of the Palm Coast Flagler Regional Chamber. I won't take a bunch of time. I watched this presentation twice now, first at the TDC and now here, and I'm still as impressed by it as when I first saw it. I think it's an exceptional project. I agree that it sets a really high standard when you're moving forward, and I think when we're talking about money that's brought to this community from bed taxes, it should be a high standard. So the Chamber supports the City of Palm Coast. They followed the rules and gone through the process, and we would like to see this awarded to them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just have one final comment.
Next speaker. Any other speakers? If nobody's approaching the podium, we're going to go ahead and close out public comment.
I think it's important to clarify that this item did create some public interest here a couple of months ago when this came forward, and some concern, well, how come Palm Coast is getting all the money and no one else is? Well, the reason is that presentation. No one else was able to come forward with an organized in fact, no presentation, going after some of these same funds. And at the TDC, I believe on July 20th, it was a unanimous vote, and that included business representatives, representatives from the city of Flagler Beach, and Palm Coast, of course. But there were 9 members, and they all agreed. So that concern that we weren't being fair with everyone is not true. We were as fair as we could possibly be.
Okay.
That's it.
With that being said, we'll go ahead and we've got a motion on the floor in a second. All in favor of this, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it, 5-0. We'll go ahead now and move to the public hearings, legislative. Application 3314, future land use map amendment for agriculture and timberlands to residential low density, single family, amendment to the future land use element to adopt partial specific limiting policy for parcels located on Old Kings Road South and I-95 between State Road 100 and Old Dixie Highway. Parcel numbers 3412310650, 000DO, 0010, and 351231. 000002100021, 38.98 acres. Owner is John Collins and Ann Rogers Collins. Applicant is Corey D. Brown, Esquire Storch Law Firm, and Adam Engel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Adam Engel, Growth Management Director. Got a short 30-slide presentation. Kidding. Hopefully y'all can see it there. I can't see it on the big one, but yep. So this is the location of the property, and this is right at the county line. So if you're familiar with projects we have had in the recent past, Eagle Lakes is just to the north, and bounding this property along its north line, is a canal that runs through from Plantation Bay and then runs up and kind of circuitously through, drains some of Palm Coast, and then runs eventually from the west to the east. That canal eventually goes over into Bulow Creek. And so you can see some of those lakes, and those lakes are just at the north, right on the other side of the canal, are part of Eagle Lakes Phase 1. And you can see Eagle Lake Drive that was part of that original Phase 1, Section 1 plat. And so these two parcels you see here are owned by the Collins family. Just to the south of this, in Volusia, you can see the part of the Wexford development that's occurring within Volusia County. And so these are the two parcels together forming 38.98 acres. And 81 lots, and effectively the latter phase of what's being termed Wexford Cove in Flagler County. So bordering along Interstate 95, the zoning on this is agricultural. So you've got that 1 unit per 5 acres in play with the land use. And so the land use that we have here is the agriculture and timberlands. And the change that you have as part of the ordinance that's in your packet is to make this same change that we saw at Eagle Lakes, the residential low-density single family, that actually allows up to 1 unit, up to 3 units per acre. And that density, again, 81 units with 38.98, we're well below that. And so part of what we would do with this is not just the map amendment, but also a parcel-specific limiting policy, so that we don't have to do that extra math and have extra density that's allocated to this project that no one intends to use. The developer's going to come in and develop 81 lots as that next phase of Wexford Cove. And so we have not only the map amendment, but then also the parcel-specific limiting policy, as you see here, and that's all included within the ordinance that's before you. Different maybe than what we've had in the past, and this is a change in statute, that now 50 acres or less is considered a small-scale amendment. So before we had a 10-acre threshold, and so this is something that we haven't had one of these processed in quite a bit, but this would be a single reading and adoption of this ordinance for the land use change. So ordinarily, something in this acreage range, 38.98 acres, a few years ago, we would have done a transmittal to the state and then come back about 60 days later and done an adoption hearing after we've had the state agencies have an opportunity to review this. That's not what happens now. And so this is an adoption contingent on our comprehensive plan, being found in compliance, which I can stand in front of you now and say that as of today, I got the letter from DEO dated today that said that they were going to issue the notice of intent pending, hopefully, no one objecting to that notice of intent to find our comprehensive plan in compliance. Our ear-based amendments we sent July 15th. We received that notice from DEO today, Department of Economic Opportunity, to find with that notice of intent that we are now in compliance. And so with that, this amendment ordinance would be adopted contingent on that comp plan coming into effect, and then you'd have the PUD, the next item on the agenda, that would be contingent on the comp plan. And so these two run in tandem, but different than what we've had before. Single reading, adoption hearing, not transmittal that's required, and then we then notify the state at the end of the year of all of these collective small-scale amendments that we have adopted. And so it's a notification process that we go through with the state. So you do have 3 options with this. We've been giving these fairly often. Approval of this application, and along with that then the adoption of the parcel-specific limiting policy. Denial, and that denial would be based on some factors, likely that this request does not meet the comprehensive plan requirements. And then the third option would be continuance, and we'd ask that if you do that, do it to a time and date certain so we can preserve public notice. Didn't need to mention for the record, Planning Board reviewed this at their meeting just this past July, and had come back and said that they were unanimously recommending approval to the Board of County Commissioners. So for the land use aspect, they reviewed this and found no issues with it, recommended approval. With that, I'll close, await any questions or comments. Mr. Storch is present. He also has a PowerPoint, and we'll both maybe work in tandem with any questions you have on this. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions? No?
Well, just about, The only thing I saw was it standing in the way was gopher turtles. That was the only thing that was on the property that had to be moved. So when does that happen?
That'll happen when, well, it'd be prior, so the timing on this, land use, zoning, and then we're gonna have a PUD site plan. So the PUD you have now, the conceptual plan goes with the ordinance. You'll have a PUD site development plan and a preliminary plat that typically run in tandem. Remember the preliminary plat, at that point, you can go out and get a land development permit. And so your land development permit, that timing typically is when your gopher tortoise stuff is all gonna be taken care of then. So a little early on that now, but, you know, that gopher tortoise survey, you know, all that's gonna happen. It will coincide with the land development permit being issued.
Just a quick question. Obviously, we're not planning a new Interstate 95 access for this.
Correct.
So do we have anything that shows the access out to Old Kings Road? I know it's early in the process, but just wondering what that's going to look like.
Yeah, I think I have it right underneath my, my map right there is where you could have seen the streets, but.
It's an old picture because Wexford's already developed.
Yeah. So we don't have our own flyover that we don't have and this wouldn't even be a drone on this one, this would be something bigger. But Wexford's well underway, has paved roads in there, and does connect into Old Kings in Volusia County.
So that'll be the way
Yes, sir.
you go through.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
All right. There are no other questions. You guys want to, you want to present? Okay. Yeah. You're here.
Here for a while, so why not? First of all, it's an honor to be here. My name is Glenn Storch. I haven't been before you guys for a while, so this is fun for me, if you can believe that.
We've never heard that before.
Right. I'm getting old. I can do that. So this is, as he indicated, this is Wexford Cove. The Wexford part of this is already in Volusia County. And plus, part of this is already in the Volusia County Service District. So water and sewer would be provided by Volusia County. There was a part of it that wasn't quite in the Volusia County Service District, and I believe we've been able to work that out now. So the extra 30 lots will also be in the Volusia Service District. So it'll all be serviced by Volusia County. It'll all be, all the access will be through the other Wexford community, and that will then go to Kings Road in Volusia County. I have to answer your question, though, as far as gophers, because it's important. Gophers are removed, but they're basically identified no less than 90 days before any construction starts, because they want to make sure that every single gopher tortoise nest is there, identified, and they're removed properly. And I don't know if you know this, but gophers removal right now, to remove them to a mitigation area, is about $6,000 per gopher. So. Right. So if you're looking for a business, mitigation bank areas are a great thing to do. But this is a great location for this development, for the community. Although, as Adam has indicated, this allows for up to 3 units per acre. We're only doing about 2 units per acre. And so it's a nice big lot. It's a very pleasant subdivision, as you can see. And there's a couple of things I wanted to mention. Well, let's see, what is this? Right button there. There we go. So this used to be, of all things, John Collins had this as a tree farm. So he was planting all these trees in their buckets, and I mean, hundreds of them, and just unfortunately left them there. And so the trees have now gotten to the point where they've expanded out of their buckets. They can't be saved because of the fact that they're partially in buckets, partially not in buckets, and they're all too close together. So you can't have those trees. So we'll be replanting trees pursuant to ordinance to bring this up to speed. But it's odd that this was an old tree farm used to provide trees for other developments. So I thought that was sort of interesting. As you can tell, like I say, it goes directly to where the Wexford area is. It's near Eagle Lake. It is also near an adjoining agricultural use. A guy named Tad Durrance, who I've known his family for literally decades. And I talked to Tad today, and he just wants to make sure that nobody wanders off of this property onto his property. So we're going to put a fence up and some no trespassing signs for him. And he was very happy about that. And I told him I'd announce that tonight as well. So, and great guy to work with. Again, we're requesting the match of density to the same as everything else in the area. We're going to limit it, though, to only 2.8 units per acre. That's going to be in the comp plan designation as a line item. So that's how you do that on both the comp plan and the zoning. Once the zoning goes in place, we will not be able to increase that without going to a comp plan amendment, by the way. That's so that 81 units is all the you can get. This is the design for it. As you can see, it ties into Wexford, and so it'll all be part of the same community. As you can also see, there's not a whole lot else you can do in this area because of the interstate at that point. So one of the things we've done is, again, by working together with utilities, we also have been able to find a way of providing utilities for the entire area now, and that will be basically closed off. Let's see here. We've talked about utilities, the Volusia utilities. This is something I always found interesting. This is going to be private roads and streets throughout there. So you'll have no investment as far as maintenance during that period of time. The HOA will be paying for maintenance for the rest of the life of this property. So you'll have private roads and streets. You have everything going into Volusia County. You have Volusia utilities. Not a whole lot of impact on Flagler County other than taxes. And your taxes, says the houses will range between $350,000 and $1 million. Although I think that $350,000 is a little low now, based on what we're seeing. You're looking at potential ad valorem income of around, I think, around $500,000 to $1 million per year. So that's not a bad investment, and that's what this is, an investment.
Do you have any concern about any kind of an emergency access there?
No. We've been working closely with, we'll continue to work closely with Volusia County as well to make sure as you're going through this that we have plenty of access points. There's several access points once you get into Wexford itself to provide for this. So, yes.
I mean, it's a question, right? We have the dual access requirement.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not obvious.
I moved outside.
I'm jumping ahead.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. But and again, this is part of an overall development. You're not seeing part of it, but that is part of what we're dealing with. But he's right. We know you have two accesses. We're required to have those two accesses, and we're working together with that. Let's see here. What else? These are larger lots, upscale homes. Again, the HOAs will pay for all the maintenance, pay for all the private roads and streets. Consistent with the County Land Development Code, the county staff obviously finds it PUD, hopefully, consistent with the proposed comp plan amendment. And I guess that's the end.
Thank you.
But I do have a representative tonight here with you. This is a local developer that's doing this, so that's nice as well. We've worked on several projects before. I've always been very impressed by the quality that we do. So if we can do anything better, let me know.
All right.
Or if there are any questions.
Thank you for your comments. Commissioners, any comments?
I just say it's probably not going to be low-cost housing.
No.
Yeah. All right. With that being said, I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve item 9A.
Second.
All right. I've got a motion and a second on the floor. We'll go ahead and open it up to public comment. Anyone wishing to comment on this item, please approach the podium, state your name, and
The whole thing's in our county.
sorry. You're fine. You got every right.
John Dance, just to back up Mr. Storch's, I actually helped Mr. Collins with that property. I've known him all my life. I was the beneficiary of some of his potted plants. They kind of got away from him because he's 93 years old now, right? Right. Okay. So I know that Mr. Collins and Parker Mitchenberg are going to do a good job with these homes. It looks like the layout is going to preserve the big trees, those majestic trees that are there. I'm sure. Going to work around them? Okay. So the only thing that I have is, I'm going to go, Mr. Sullivan again, is we're going to add another 81 homes to the Volusia County side of Old Kings Road. And we were talking about it the other day. that side of Old Kings Road in Volusia County is 45 miles an hour. And there's no bicycle trail on each side or bike, whatever. They haven't done anything to that road. When we redid Old Kings Road, we put bike lane on both sides. I don't know what the negotiation is with Volusia County and Flagler County, if anything's going to be done, but it's getting pretty scary out there.
Right, even though I'm interrupting, the mayor's here tonight, and I'm here, and we're both recent addition to the transportation office in Volusia County, and one of our main topics is to fix that whole intersection of Old Kings and Old Dixie Highway and the 95 interchange there. It needs to be looked at, and we have to get Volusia to get on board with that. So the way we're hoping to help do that is that we're both now on that TPO council now down in Volusia.
Thank you. I only have one more comment. I got 3 mailers in the mail from the chair. And his priorities says smart growth to maintain Flagler County's high quality of life. Well, the south end of Old Kings Road has already been destroyed by the approval of Radiance. 1,200 homes on 600 acres. But there's 100 acres of that 600 acres that can't be used. So 1,200 homes is now on 500 acres. An acre is 208 by 208. That's 5 homes per acre. So that's not smart growth.
All right, next speaker, please.
Sandra Shank, I'm the chair of the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee for Flagler County. Didn't know this item was going to be on the agenda, but I think it's an excellent opportunity, especially since Mr. Sullivan mentioned no workforce housing. This is an excellent opportunity, although we do not have inclusionary zoning included in our affordable housing, it doesn't preclude us from negotiating it and incentivizing the developer. We had all of our Sheriff's Department, all of the deputies that were here, and the sheriffs did an excellent presentation on how we are losing deputies to other counties. And I'm quite sure one of the issues is if he can't increase the salaries, people cannot afford the rent, they cannot afford the housing prices. This is an excellent opportunity to sit with this developer to negotiate inclusionary zoning, which will not impact the appraised value of the homes. And even if he were to do a 10% set aside, it would be something. You have 8 homes going in there, and it could benefit the people that serve us here in this county. And so again, I'm glad you mentioned it, Mr. Sullivan. And I said, I have to seize this opportunity. This is truly an opportunity to negotiate with this developer.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Sorry. Greg Blasset, President and CEO of the Palm Coast Flagler Regional Chamber. Just wanted to get up here and share that the Chamber, since it was brought up, is opposed to inclusionary zoning. We prefer affordable housing solutions that do not require developers to be forced to provide affordable housing. We want an open market for builders and developers in the construction industry in Flagler County. We advocate for affordable housing all the time. Y'all see me up here, but to require developers to go through the process, if they're interested in doing it, great. It's needed, sorely needed in Flagler County, but in terms of inclusionary zoning, the Chamber is opposed to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. All right, seeing no one else is approaching the podium, I'll go ahead and bring it back up. We have a motion already, right? Yeah, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it, 5-0. So we'll now move to item 9B, which is quasi-judicial. Do we have anything to disclose?
Nothing.
I have nothing.
I have nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing. And Commissioner Sullivan has nothing, so. Flush twice if you don't have nothing. Adam, you go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's the same one, Matt. Yes, sir. This is a companion application, and this is the rezoning to PUD. And so you had the acreage breakdown, and so this has that lot area that we have, 17.96 acres, basically 18 acres of the 38 is the lots themselves. And then you have common area open space combined. You do have several of the tracks were dedicated for open space purposes along with some other uses. We do have that policy that we've talked about here, that if you have some incorporation of your stormwater into some recreational amenity, adding the trail to it, or adding an overlook, or some water feature to that's something that we could then use in an open space calculation for passive or active recreation purposes. So you have that math that shows that this is using very small portion of the property, basically about half of it for that the lots themselves, 5 acres for roads. This is that page 1 of the PUD site development plan, again being the conceptual, to touch on where that emergency egress comes in between lots 21 and 22, down the bottom right where that cul-de-sac is. And what we're intending here with that is that the assumption we always make is that the what if of something happening at the entrance. And so it would be then if something happened at lot 1, just to the east of lot 1, then you'd have the ability to be able to then go down that cul-de-sac instead that's there, and be able to use that for access. And certainly in Volusia, there's more access points. But with this, we had a limited opportunity to really do that. Parker heard what we were saying, went and put that into 21 and 22 in between that as our secondary means of ingress, egress to meet our requirements. This is I think this graphic is sheet 2, and I think this one was showing some of the topography that was with this. This again, this one also showed the utilities. This was topography with the utilities showing the proposed utility plan, and then this was the topography alone without the lot layout as sheet 3 in your packet. Just so you could see some of what you're dealing with on the property. It's got some nice contours that are there already built in. And then the building setbacks that have become an issue for us in the past. This is on the site plan itself, but also incorporated in the PUD development agreement. And so you have that 20-foot front setback, 7.5 foot on the sides, and then a rear setback 10 feet or 7.5 feet for swimming pools, screen enclosures, pool decks, those sorts of things. And so not uncommon, something we've seen very often. You do also have the note about the mechanical equipment where you don't have those lining up. You have that offset that's become something else we wanted to have incorporated into our PUD development agreement. So we have that now. And so that hopefully that'll maintain that area between those lots for drainage purposes, those other purposes that we have, they're often dedicated for. This rezoning request actually predated the land use request by several months. In March, it was continued from the planning board meeting to April. We wanted it to align with the future land use, but because of our timing on our comp plan update, planning board heard this first, and in April, they took action to recommend approval to the Board of County Commissioners for what you're hearing tonight. And so again, we have the 3 options available to you. Approval of the Wexford Cove PUD, finding the PUD development agreement, PUD site development plan, consistent with the comprehensive plan, the land development code, and then subject to all the terms, the development agreement itself. Denial would find that the proposed PUD rezoning does not meet the comprehensive plan or land development code requirements. And then a continuance would be to a time and date certain for something that we've left out or something that Mr. Storch hasn't provided to us. And we'd ask that be to a date and time certain so we can preserve public notice. With that, I'll close, await any questions or comments. And again, I'll look to Mr. Storch if he's got any additional comments to make. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioners, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't, can you point out the amenities, if any?
Yeah, we've got the walking trail that goes around that pond that's there. So you'll see at the end of the northwest cul-de-sac, you'll see a trail that runs down and then connects back between lots 17.
That's a park.
Yeah. And so you've got a trail there. You've also got an open space tract. I think it's just north of lot 25 and 26. It's just truly just open space. It's left with trees. You've got a couple of areas of set aside. There's probably not a whole lot else I can say specifically. There Lynn, was there anything in that area where the mail kiosk? Okay.
Partially because this is, I'm sorry, I appreciate that. There is the passive park, but partially because of the fact this is tied into Wexford and Volusia County, we're also providing some things in there to assist, to provide for these residents. Obviously, when you're marketing this, you want to make sure that everyone has the same sort of amenities that are be going through this. But Wexford does have amenities, is that correct? So there's trails and other things. No? Okay, sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Dance?
The parcels that abut Corona, can you tell me how that's going to affect the edges of the Corona Canal? Yeah.
It's a canal to the north. Was there any, I know we had the discussion about that, and if there was a landscape buffer or anything to the rear of that. I think that there was a maintenance easement that's back there that's, I think we saw this 50 feet wide. I don't want to quote it wrong. It's on the drawing. But nothing specific that I think was planned back there, right? No. Okay.
There's actually about 50 feet from those
Come on up, I'm sorry.
Identify yourself.
Yes, please.
Dave Jantz, the developer. The lots that back to the north boundary of the Corona Canal, there's about 50 feet there from the back of the platted lots to the top of bank on the Wexford Cove property. The lots across that property line are B-grade lots, so they balanced front and the rear. So there'll be a swale across the back. We're providing a maintenance easement for the Corona Canal. And so the homeowners have quite a buffer to where that actually is.
The other one I had was like the adjacent parcel, the one that's where the two little maps are. There's that adjacent parcel along 95. How are we leaving access open for that parcel?
That's part of Wexford Cove. We're leaving that just strictly as a buffer to 95.
So there's no future development. That's in the Wexford plans? Is that
No
in
future
Flagler or
developments in
Volusia?
Wexford plans.
Pardon me?
It'll be part of this PUD.
Yeah, it's part of the PUD, and what's adjacent to 95 is being left as a natural tree buffer untouched.
Is that in Volusia or Flagler?
Flagler.
Andy, we need to make sure we.
So what he is what he's.
Andy, we need to make sure that
property
you're talking about the northwest corner that's adjoining 95. Is that what you're talking about?
It's right where the two inserts are, where the two small maps are, that parcel.
Okay, I understand. That parcel has a different owner, also with last name Collins. That is not part of the project. We are providing her with a 50-foot access easement to be able to access her land. She has several billboards along 95, so they need to be able to get on site to maintain them.
Is that access from Wexford Cove or from Wexford?
Yeah, from Wexford Cove. So as soon as you cross the boundary from Volusia County to Flagler County, we've left a 50-foot access easement for her to gain access to her property.
Got it. Okay, I see it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Really, that was it, other than the comment on the saving of the bigger trees that are on the project.
Obviously, we have to work with staff on that regardless, so that's important.
Well, we've left the areas open.
Right.
For those trees, so we just have to protect them properly. And
It's one of the reasons we had that passive park.
Right,
Okay.
right.
Commissioners, any other comments on the right side?
No.
No? All right, with that being said, I'll go ahead and,
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve item 9B.
Second.
we've got a motion and a second. We'll go ahead and open it up to public comment. Anyone wishing to comment on this item, please approach the podium. And seeing no one's approaching the podium, I'll go ahead and bring it back. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it, so we'll go ahead and move on.
Thank you very much.
Thank
I
you.
gotta tell you, I
Thank you.
really appreciate Adam and all the hard work he did there.
And
Thank you.
just a little bit of history. That area of where Wexford is was an old hunting preserve that for quail and all chucker and all that stuff, it's got a long history too.
All right, thank you, guys. And we'll go ahead now to 10A, item additional reports and comments, and the county administrator.
Real quick, just wanted to give you a couple updates. I know Lauren Johnson was here earlier and she touched on it, that we continue to make progress for our interlocal agreement with Palm Coast for that Parks Master Planning, which is scheduled to take place beginning sometime in October. We are ready to bring that interlocal agreement back to you at your next meeting on September 7th. So that's something we've got coming forward. We have been notified by our concessionaire out at Bull Creek Campground that he has a desire to sell his business. He has entertained some offers and identified somebody to take over his agreement. We're in the process of looking to do a reassignment of that lease agreement. Again, we're working through some of that now, and we're hopeful to bring that item back to you sometime in September. And the other comment that I had, the gentleman from Wexford, representing Wexford, had already mentioned it, but I did want to report that the FGUA had reached an agreement with the Wexford Development on South Old Kings Road for Volusia County to go ahead and provide those utility services to that new phase of development. Even though this area is within the service area of FGUA, they were able to reach some sort of a utility mitigation payment from the developer to FGUA to offset some of that potential loss of revenue that should have come to FGUA. That is something that the FGUA board will be discussing this week at their monthly board meeting. So I just wanted to give you an update on that, and that concludes my report.
Okay. Bernie Ati?
Yes, good evening. Just two updates. You may recall from the last board meeting that we had informed you that mediation was being conducted in the Dixie Motel case. That mediation was not successful. That is, we could not come to an agreement. We are preparing a motion relative to the contract. They are claiming that the contract, the way entered into them, is not valid. So we're setting that for a hearing with the circuit court now that we have complied with the judge's order to conclude the mediation. So that's in the Dixie Motel case. Also wanted to report to you that in the Sears case, the Sears building case, we've been working on that case. That case is set to go to trial in November of this year. We are in the process of conducting the discovery related to the expert witnesses for that trial. I'll also tell you that the insurance company for the engineering firm has reached out to us to make an offer to them for settlement in advance of trial. And of course, we'll work through that process. And if there's any update to that, obviously we'll let you know. But that concludes my report. Thank you.
All right. And now we'll go ahead and back to our community outreach. This is a 30-minute session. If you'll state your name, where you're from, and speak away.
Mike Feldbauer, resident of Flagler County. I wasn't sure how this thing worked, otherwise I might have brought it up earlier, gentlemen, on your consent agreement 7H. Didn't understand quite how that worked. This is something that I very much have interest in. If the gentleman will remember several months ago when I brought back that we needed to do an audit of the existing treatment provider, and that audit was completed and an RFP was issued, and it got narrowed down, as I understand, to 2. The issue has been that portion is a couple of months gone, and we're still dealing with the existing provider that, in my opinion, others, but I speak for myself only tonight, is not doing us justice and is not handling and not taking care of our people that are in the drug court program properly. 2 most important components of drug court are the judge and the treatment provider. We're doing good on the judge. We're not doing good on the treatment provider. So I don't know how we expedite this. I understand that the two people that have applied, or at least are in the final, one of them is Epic, which is doing an extraordinary job out at our jail right now, running the SMART program out there with them. And again, my opinion is if we can expedite this, and if they're one of the leaders, we get them in and we get them running right away, because we're already too late.
I think we just, that's the
Epic
decision
was
we
the
made.
first ranked.
Excuse me?
They were ranked first.
Epic was the number one.
Okay. So, but again, I'm not understanding the terms. If they're the number one choice, have they been contacted? Have we negotiated? Are they ready to sign?
The item tonight gave approval from the board. We were asking the board, and they gave approval to go ahead and authorize staff to negotiate a contract with them. That's why it's on the agenda. And it
Okay.
is for Epic.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it. We need it, and we need it quickly.
Next speaker, please.
Yes, George Mayo, Palm Coast. Before I was talking about beach erosion, and in the article that I read concerning that problem, it said that both St. John's and Volusia County and their commissioners, I should say administration, excuse me, have a person specifically there for beach and sand dune and erosion. And since this is going to be, looks like a constant recurring problem, is that something, and then that Flagler did not have anybody doing that, is that something that we need, a specific person in our administration to look out for this as opposed to, you know, other duties and then all of a sudden have to rush over towards the beach? So if that's something we need because this problem is not going away, then how do we handle it? Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Seeing there's no one else approaching the podium, we'll go ahead and close it out. And
I think we hired somebody, didn't we?
I think we've made a billet of it. You know,
Yeah.
there's a billet.
Did we hire the engineer to run the beach? Have we done that yet?
We made a conditional offer
Oh,
at this
okay.
point.
so we're in the process of
Okay,
that.
process.
Yeah.
We're doing it.
So, all right, with that being said, community outreach is closed. I'll go ahead and move to commission reports or comments or actions. Commissioner Dance?
I don't know if this is the appropriate time, but Ms. Shank is here because she thought that the reallocation of a commissioner to the Affordable Housing Committee was going to be on the agenda.
It wasn't necessary to put it on the agenda.
Okay.
Commissioner O'Brien has assumed that responsibility.
Well, I talked to Mrs. Shank, and she makes a really, really good point. Commissioner Dance has been attending the meetings, even though he's not on the committee, and I'm more than happy to step aside if he's willing to do that. I have enough to do, and
That's fine.
you know, I have no issues. And I support that.
I'm good with it.
That's fine. I think that we had reached out to Commissioner O'Brien because
did,
he was
yes.
on there as the alternate, but we can certainly change that and we can put you down.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll let them know.
It's not that I don't think it's
Only
important.
a couple months till we do it again in November, but we're good.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
and it would be an honor to work with a passionate leader as Sandra is, but I defer to you, sir.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. All right.
That's it. Thank you.
Commissioner Hanson?
No, I have nothing.
Commissioner Sullivan?
Just want to make the point, Commissioner Dance is with me on this. Our canvassing board is well underway for the county. We've had 3 or 4 meetings, and I think as of today, we're, 12,500 votes are in. Early voting's on. The primary election final is on August 23rd, so it's coming up quickly. We'll know. We'll have an answer on that.
Commissioner O'Brien? Did you say?
I was just made aware that the conditional offer on the coastal engineer, that he did not accept it, so we have that back out there being
Okay.
advertised, so.
And I've got no comments, so we'll go ahead and I'll entertain a motion.
Move we adjourn?
And we're adjourned.
No, sir. Okay.